Berkeley College was one of the founding sponsors of Women's Entrepreneurship Week here in the state of New Jersey. This is our 5th year of sponsorship and our 4th year of hosting our own events in 2 states, New York City and New Jersey, where we have campuses. We have more than 7,000 students that we serve, and the majority of our students are women. And we're creating a program that supports women, and what's good for women is good for men. So, you like that? It's true. We're in this together, and so when we're empowering each other, this is the day to do it. The title of our event is Women in Leadership Breaking Barriers. And what does it mean to break a barrier? For many, breaking a barrier means being the first. It's the whole idea of being the first, like Mary Barra. She's the CEO, the first female CEO of a major American automaker. Or Stacey Cunningham, the first woman president of the New York Stock Exchange. Sandra Day O'Connor, the first woman appointed to the Supreme Court of the United States. Or Shirley Chisholm, the first African-American woman elected to Congress. Or Christy Todd Whitman, the first female to become governor of the state of New Jersey. And we can see first right here in this room. How many of you are the first to go to college in your family? Raise your hands, be proud. Today, you will get to meet many people behind firsts, such as Patricia Perkins Auguste, the first African-American woman elected to city council in the city of Elizabeth. Elizabeth is the 4th largest city in the state of New Jersey. I have a little bit of an affinity for the city because it's where I was born and raised. I have to have full disclosure here. But I really admire Councilwoman Patricia Perkins Auguste. She's been city councilwoman at large. At large means you represent the entire city. You're not just voted into office by a district, but by the entire city for 26 years. The past 10 of those years, the only woman on the council. You will also meet Mayor Wilda Diaz later this morning, the first woman to be elected mayor in the city of Perth Amboy, the first Latina woman and the only Latina woman serving as a mayor in a community in the state of New Jersey. You will also hear from Shaisha Boyd Dorchy, our student, who's a student leader here on campus, and many of our students have aspirations to help out in their community and potentially also run for office. That's the great thing about Berkeley College, is that we help inspire our students and support them in their endeavors for community service and to become engaged as public servants in their community. I'm also excited because this is a day where we activate the voices of women everywhere. We activate voices. We're not just talking the talk, we're going to walk the walk. Across the country, more than 434 women are running for national elected office. That's the biggest number of women in the history of our country running for office. And how do you activate your voice? You activate your voice with your votes and with your actions. And our president, Michael Smith, knows a lot about bringing voices to fruition, bringing dreams to fruition, and encouraging students to tell his stories, their stories, encouraging students to tell your stories. Since he became president more than 3 years ago, he's entering the 4th year of his presidency at Berkeley College. Michael has been a tireless advocate for our students, and he's often seen on the campuses meeting with students at his chat and choose. And the first thing he asks each of you is, when are you graduating? What are your dreams? And tell us your story. This is one of the most energizing aspects of being at Berkeley College, is the fact that our students are writing their stories. And this day is about writing your story and hearing the stories of those who inspire us, like our president, Michael Smith.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Pretty good. Hey, I'm getting a sneaking suspicion that summer's almost over. What do you think? Welcome to Berkeley College. I see a lot of students here. I am so pleased to have students here. We did this same event in New York City yesterday, as Angela said, and it was wonderful. We had students there. A number of students made really powerful connections with the panelists. They talked about what they were interested in. They raised some questions during the panel discussions. The panelists who are all very generous with their time, very generous people in their lives, offered to make connections with the students right then and there as to specific things that they asked for. So a lot of times when you ask the universe for something, the universe responds immediately if you're listening. So in that regard, pay attention today. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. You're going to hear some things that are going to stimulate you and also provide opportunities for you. You are here for a reason. There's a great opportunity that your life could be set in a different path, or on the path really more that it's intended to be, based upon something that you hear or that you do today. So pay attention and listen for start off. To our panelists, thank you. Thank you for coming for today. We appreciate your giving of your time to impact the lives of other citizens of New Jersey, and in particular the women who have some opportunities to really accelerate their growth and their opportunities. As regards to Michelle Siekerka, there are lists published in New Jersey of the most powerful people, and as is typical when you see these lists that are published out there, it's dominated by men, substantially by men. The name that you see on the New Jersey list all the time is our speaker, Michelle Siekerka. I've seen Michelle speak so many times. I'm always stimulated by what she says, what she does. She is a real powerhouse and a leader in the state of New Jersey. She's doing things that really making Jersey a great state to live in, and I'm going to say making Jersey great again. Jersey's always been great. And Michelle is one of the reasons why New Jersey is great and why we continue to make New Jersey great in that regard. I have to give thanks to Angela. Angela talks about me being a powerhouse. I look like I'm in a permanent vacation when I stand next to Angela. She And as I said, I tell Angela works with me, but I'm very comfortable saying to Angela in public and to her face, "You're crazy." But she's a good crazy. She is so passionate about what she does. These programs, this type of program, she puts her heart and her soul into it. And she leads a really great team, including Kelly Depsey, who really programmed and put this together. So let's put our hands together for Kelly and all the hard work she did on this. So let me tell you, those students who are here at Berkeley College, let me give you a real quick briefing of what Berkeley College is all about. We've been doing what we've been doing for 87 years at this point. Over 7,000 students has been mentioned. And one of the key things we do is that we change students' lives. There was a study that was published in the New York Times about a year ago, and they did a measure of 2,100 colleges throughout the United States that measure what they call income mobilities. And these are institutions that offer bachelor degrees. And they said, what colleges had the biggest impact on moving students' household family income, 2 or more quintiles? So making a significant move in students' household family income on the mere basis of going to college, attending a college, and graduating a college. So Berkeley College, New Jersey, was in the top 4% of all schools in the United States of America. Top 4%. That study measured 30 million college students. So by going to Berkeley College, you are truly making an opportunity. We have the teachers and the instructors here and the opportunities like today to really allow you to accelerate. But you have to be in the game. You have to be involved and you have to be engaged. As to the content, as to the expectations of Women's Entrepreneurship Week, this session, I am sure, will follow the pattern that we had from yesterday's session and last year's sessions and the prior year's session. You're going to hear women who are not talking about, theoretically what needs to be done. They're going to tell you the stories of their lives and what they have done to achieve what they have achieved. And they're all different. They look different. They have different titles. They have different stories. But one of the themes that you see concurrent through many of them is how they've dealt with adversity, how they've dealt with challenges, and how they turned those challenges and adversities into opportunities. And that's what life is all about. It's taking the times you get knocked off the surfboard, the time you get back up on and get the balance going, find the next wave and riding. Typically, and this is a great opportunity for me here, because I know some of the panelists here know my sister Monica Smith, and Monica is an entrepreneur in New Jersey. She's a very special and very talented entrepreneur in New Jersey, and if you talk about the challenges that my sister Monica had growing up, one of the first ones she told you is that she grew up in a family of 7 kids with 6 boys, and she was the only girl. That was a challenge for her. But the other challenge that she really has is that, and any of those who know my sister Monica, please tell her when you see her this, tell her that I acknowledge one of the biggest challenges that my sister had is that she's one of the least funniest people in my family. So she's gonna die when she hears that. So, but here's what she does to me. All right, this is like any of you have little sisters? Who here has little sisters? All right. So here's what my little sister does to me. They have the thing, there's a rating system where they evaluate organizations. It's called Glassdoor. So when you get to the point of looking for a company that you're going to apply to, there's a thing called Glassdoor, and they have people who work there, and they talk about a profile, and they say, here's the good parts of working in this organization, here are the bad parts, and they rate it, how the benefits, how the human resources, how's the compensation that's out there. But they also rate the CEO. So for Berkeley College, I'm the CEO of Berkeley College, and they have ratings out there. And every time I'm with my sister, she compares her rating to my rating. Oh, it's not funny. It's not funny because there was a period of time, like I had a better rating than Monica, and I was like sticking it to her. And now she's got a much better rating than me. I think she's going in and writing bad things about me. I really do. I really do. So if you can help me out, I'm not saying, write bad things about Monica, but if you want to write nice things about me, I'd be happy about that. But anyway, the reality is that Monica has interesting stories, and the challenge is, and taking those challenges and really getting focused on the opportunities that you have. This is a tremendous opportunity. Listen to these panelists today because they're special, they're talented, and you know what? The mere fact that they're here today talking to you is indicative of the fact that they're really willing, ready to help you. At Berkeley College each year we create a theme, and the theme for this year talks about knowing your goal, and it's a picture of, and we give this coin to every Berkeley associates, and the idea is that we have a picture of a graduate in cap and gown holding their diploma on the top of a mountain. And that's going to be you, because the important thing is not that you came to college. The important thing for you is that you're going to leave college. And you're going to leave college with the skills and abilities to be successful. We're going to work our hardest to have you be successful. But you've got to do the work too. You've got to show up. You've got to do your homework. You've got to read your assignments. You've got to pass your midterms. When we talked to some of the students before, we talked about midterms. We've got some midterms that are coming up now. Ask for help along the way. We've got a tutoring center, a CAS, that can help you. We've got teachers who are so good and so giving. And listen to our panelists today. See how they can help you out too. Now, the good thing that Angela did yesterday, and the good thing that she did for me today, is when you look at the running order who's going to be speaking, they put me speaking before the student. Because if I speak after the student, you're like, I'll come up here and like, that guy is no good. The students are always so impressive. That's the best part of Berkeley College, and the best part of my job is the students. And I'm so pleased to be able to introduce at this point Shaisha Boyd Georgie. And I heard that she was, come on up. She's going to tell you a little bit about her story, about who she is, but just someone who you meet, you see at an early age, you hear the story of who they are, and you just think that they're going to be able to do something special in their lives. I know you've been mentored by Melody, who is a star in her own rights, and we're really expecting tremendous things out of you as you continue on. You're graduating in May of 19, right? And then off to, you're going to graduate with a degree in fashion management. Yeah. Yeah, and then big things are going to happen for you. So pay attention to you'll fellow students. In some ways, you're going to want to be like her, but you want to create your own story that's out there. You want to know clearly what your goal is, but know that you went to school with her, and when she becomes even increasingly more famous, you're going to say, I went to school with her, all right? So have a great day. Enjoy yourselves. Pay attention. Listen. Know your goal. Really, show a lot of love and attention to our speakers today, because they are truly very, very special individuals. They have a lot to share, and you're going to hear something that's going to resonate particularly with you. So enjoy your day.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I want to start by thanking all of the brilliant businesswomen who came out today. My name is Shaisha Boyd Georgie, and I'm in my second to last semester here at the Berkeley College Woodbridge campus. I serve as the student government president, the Fashion Club president, and a member of the National Society of Leadership and Success, where I have earned the National Engaged Leadership Award. My experience at Berkeley has been amazing and full of wonderful opportunities. When I first started classes here, I had no intention of being involved. I went to school and I went home. I was very shy and I lacked the confidence to get involved. However, thanks to the support of my family, I am now involved in many campus activities and clubs, including working for Career Services, and I'm able to stand here today and speak to all of you. This is my biggest accomplishment to date, overcoming my fears and shyness. Events such as this and the NJBIA 2018 Women Business Leader Forum, Empowering Together, that I attended last month, are incredibly important for students to be a part of because they make new connections and it's a great networking opportunity. But to me, I think the most important thing is how these events contribute to building up one's self-confidence. Through these experiences, I have gained more confidence in myself to take steps toward positions I really thought I would not be able to. Confidence that helped me take steps toward becoming student government president, fashion club president, student speaker, and most importantly, my goal is to become a magazine editor after I graduate. This new confidence helped me also participate in organizing a fundraiser for Hurricane Florence and starting something I call Motivational Monday, where a few SGA members and I hand out motivational quotes and confidence quotes to students while serving them breakfast. Since today is not Monday, I'll leave you with a thought for Thursday. Motivate yourself to build your own dreams, or someone will hire you to build theirs. Whether your dream is to become an entrepreneur and start your own business or work for the company you always dreamt about, put in the effort and the time and the work to make it happen. With all of that said, I am eternally grateful for these experiences and all the opportunities that these events give me. Thank you again to all the brilliant businesswomen who built their own dreams. Thank you.
Shaisha, we are grateful to you. Thank you for those motivational words. And she hardly needed any notes. Did you notice that? It is all about confidence, isn't it? Just being able to believe in yourself and believe in your dreams. And another aspect I want to mention is the importance of networking and all the people in this room today. Please connect with our panelists, our speakers, and share those dreams because they are the great connectors. We are the great connectors. So please take advantage of that. Use your confidence, okay? Yesterday we spoke about having a seat at the table and where there are gaps at the table, and even when women are at the table, having a voice at the table. It's not just enough to have a seat at the table, but to bring your voice to the table. And our keynote speaker, Michelle Sakurka, she has a seat at the table, and she's bringing women with her. When Michelle first started her tenure at NJBIA in 2014, one of the first things she did was start an empowerment forum for women, which you heard Shaisha mention. And our students have been involved with that initiative from the beginning. And I want to give a shout out to our friends at NJBIA here today who came to support this event and to support Michelle. Michelle also has a seat on the board of directors of Investors Savings Bank. In addition to her roles in state government and public policy, she's also a master collaborator. She brings together business, education, and government to work on policies that are important in moving the state of New Jersey forward. And this is a tremendous asset and gift to the state of New Jersey to have someone like Michelle who is actually collaborating across the state, across the aisles, taking the politics out of it, and making what matters, number one, the state of New Jersey and its people and businesses. I want to share a quote that, Michelle, the theme of your forum for NJBIA this year was empowerment. And you shared a quote that said, our actions, what we all do together, absolutely is moving the needle and making a difference here in the state of New Jersey and in all of our communities. That's what we do as women. Leaders become great, not just because of their power, but also because of their ability to empower others. Remember, a leader who leads is about sharing the empowerment and empowering others. Michelle's bio is in the book, so you can read all about it. She's an attorney by trade, but she is the Chief Empowerment Officer for the state of New Jersey. I want to say, welcome, Michelle, to Berkeley College.
Thanks, Angela, Michael, and Shaisha. Thank you so much. Wow, I feel the energy in this room, and it is absolutely my privilege to be on campus with you here today. We're going to get ourselves empowered. I'm going to ask you all to stand up for 1 minute. So there is this myth or saying, or maybe it's true, but they say the center of your power, the center of your energy, lies 3 fingers below your belly button. So take your 3 fingers, place it below your belly button, and just take a moment and just find that center. And as you experience everything that you can here today, feel that power, your energy center, be filled and grow, and have it work its way through you to build that confidence that I know you all have, to give you that ability to turn to someone new today and say hello, to walk away with something that you're going to put into action tomorrow. So when you hear something today that has meaning to you, take yourself back to that center of power and just feel the energy it's going to give you and enjoy it, and enjoy everything you can take out of today. So when you leave today, you should be exploding, okay? There should be fireworks coming out of this building at the end of today, okay? So let's feel that power and let's get empowered. So have a seat. This morning, I just want to share a few minutes with all of you, and then I want to get a little feedback, because what's best for me is I can share, but it means more when I can get back from you, and then I can take what I get from you today and I can go and share that with others. That's that spirit of collaboration. But I want to spend a few minutes this morning talking about effective leadership and how you build that personally, professionally, and civically. Because you're going to hear business leaders today who are really rocking it in the business world, but you're going to hear civic leaders today who are making a change in each and every one of our communities. And the interconnection of those 2 things is so incredibly important. I say all the time when I speak that great businesses make great communities, and the intersection of business and civics is so, so important to building our communities. If you just think about when you go home every day into your own community and what you give back to your community, think about the business people in your communities. I remind everyone all the time that it's the business leaders in the state of New Jersey. When they go home to their communities every day, they take their suit off, they take their dress off, they let their hair down, and what do? Many of them maybe put on a baseball or a softball hat. They go out to the field to coach their kids in lacrosse and soccer and baseball and football and basketball. The weekend comes, they're not just hanging out reading the paper. They're in their church and their synagogue. They're taking collections. They're helping people, right? Who's funding things that goes on in the communities? The fireworks, the parades, who's leading those? It's those business leaders. They are the strength behind Main Street, and they're the strength behind our communities. And that's why the intersection of business and civics is so, so important. So always remember that. So I want to talk today a little bit about some of the traits that I have personally found to be significantly important in building effective leadership and things that I have lived by. But I will say that, as I always tell myself as my older self and the things I should know as my younger self, it's not just about having the skills. What you learn in this building and through your educational experience is significantly important. The skills are significantly important. It's the substance behind what you do. But equally important is how you deliver on that. It's how you use those skills and how you put them into action every day. It means nothing if you've got them if you don't put them into action. So we have to build them, we have to put them into action, and we have to put them into action in a way that they're received by others as having relevance. And that's really important. So what are some of the skills that I found over time that were so important to me? Focus and commitment. Now, when I was about 9 years old, I set out on a course of wanting to be a lawyer. Don't know why, okay? First one to go to college in my family as well. My mom said I talked a lot, so I think that had something to do with it, right? But I kind of got like myopically focused, a little tunnel vision on what do I need to do to become a lawyer. And my whole career path, my educational path was drawn to that. Well, I knew I had to do good in school so I could get into college. Got into college. I knew I had to do good to get into law school. I knew I had to take tests. I knew I had to take standardized tests a horrible test taker. I'll tell you, my SATs, I didn't even break 900, let alone 1,000. 3 times I took them. Didn't let that stop me though, okay? And I think I turned out okay despite those SAT scores, all right? But the focus and commitment of kind of getting that tunnel vision through my whole career, I've always stepped back. I always call it like the hourglass, okay? I had to be able to see 5 years ahead of me of where I was going, and I had to make sure that like I wasn't just trying to get there, but I put myself there. I think they call it, you skate to where the puck's gonna be, you don't go to where the puck is going, right? So in my life, I've always said, where's my puck gonna be in 5 years? And what am I doing to make sure that I'm gonna be there when the puck gets there, not that I'm skating to it. Leaning in and being ahead, that's that focus and commitment of seeing what's coming down the pike. So, so, so important. Be proactive, but not aggressive. This is important to me. There's actually a funny story behind this because the very first time I talked about the difference between proactivity and aggressiveness, someone read it in a statement and they took it totally out of context, and she thought I was saying that women aren't allowed to be aggressive. And I said, no, 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 I just think it's what you call it. For me personally, I call it proactivity because I think that you could put yourself out there and you can get ahead of stuff and you can be assertive without having to be a bully about it, right? I think as a woman, I don't have to walk in the room and over-assert myself in a way that I have to like be like, I think because when I bring my confidence into the room and I bring my education and my skills and I deliver it the right way, that's me being proactive. And I don't necessarily have to bully my way in because I think that my strength of what I have is gonna get me there. But being proactive is so important. You can't be shy about getting in that room. You gotta find your way in that room, and then when you're in that room, you gotta exercise on the right way of delivering on how you interact with others. And you can do that without being a bully. I know it because I live it every day. And I see those who do it through bullying, and I say, I don't think that works so well. So for me, proactivity is just so, so, so important. Passion and integrity. Passion is, if someone said to me, and people say you should be able to define yourself in 3 words, right? For me, the first word always is passion. If you're not passionate about what you do, then others are not going to come along. When you are passionate about what you do, you exert this tremendous influence that people just want to be near you. Passion is contagious. It's intoxicating. And if people feel your passion, your energy, they're going to come and drink your Kool-Aid, okay? And I think passion is so, so, so important that not only do I have to feel it in everything I do, right, but I always hire for it as well. So I talked about those skills before. Somebody could be standing in front of me, they could have every skill that I could check off on the list, and they could be the perfect person that fits the job description. If they don't have the passion, forget it. I have somebody over here who's eager, hungry, and passionate about what they're doing. They get the job every day from me. But what's really important is this passion has to be natural. You put on, you can't fake it. People will know. It's not about a game face, it's about what's inside here, all right? When I wake up every day today as the president and CEO of the New Jersey Business Industry Association, I am so proud to represent New Jersey business, as I shared before, because of what they do, not just for business, but for community, right? And I'm proud to be I'm the first female leader of the New Jersey Business Industry Association. But when I wake up every day, every single morning, I get my feet out of that bed and I head to the shower, right? What am I passionate about today? I am passionate about going out and making sure that this great state of New Jersey can create new jobs every day and that our businesses can be strong and that all of you have a career path for the future to be the employees of our companies for tomorrow. Every day, I get my little rah-rah speech in my head, okay? I am like New Jersey's cheerleader, all right? I got my pom-poms, Wayne, Katie, you guys know that, right? I'm always out there, let's go New Jersey. But I know New Jersey can't do it on their own if we don't have strong business. So it's incumbent upon me when I get up every day to get that passion and those pom-poms out and say, what am I doing for New Jersey Business Day? And what am I doing for the future leaders in the state of New Jersey to be our workforce of tomorrow? And that's so important. Along with that, though, is that integrity. It's got to be real, folks. Don't fake it, okay? You got to feel good about what you want. And people will see that, and that's going to transcend and resonate. And that's what you do in your community as well. So important. I have sat on more nonprofit boards than I can count on my hands and my feet because I love helping and being civically engaged. But you know what? I'll only go to the ones where I feel the real passion to give back. And it's also about not just showing up when you do that. It is not enough to just show up when you volunteer. You can say, I want to go out there and be part of my community. If you just show up, no, you got to have your all in it. And the only way you have your all in it is if you're passionate about what you're doing. So passion is so, so important. So these skills today, before I say the next one that's important to me, the skills today that I'm talking about truly are hardcore leadership skills. Our women's initiative at NJBIA is all about hardcore leadership skills, whether you are a man or a woman. These are the skills you need to be successful in life to be an effective leader. Today, as we stand here in 2018, it's still important that we put an emphasis and a focus on women's leadership because women are still in the need to get to these places more so. We still have a need to raise women to the C-suite and the boardroom, and that's why we have a women's leadership initiative. But I tell you that the skills are hardcore for men and women both. And I say that before the next thing because this one is about a women, this is for the women in the room, is never be afraid to be a woman in a man's world. Never, ever be afraid to be a woman in a man's world. Lean into it. We talked about, I could tell you how many times I was the only woman in a room. And it's really, really easy to just kind of like, you know, sink into the crowd. Being a woman in a man's world, stepping up to what's going on in that room and putting yourself in that moment, you'll be accepted by the people around you. And I want to share a fun story with you because I had one of these most unique experiences among all the ones. Whether it was my first day as an attorney, a young lawyer, I was a litigator, and my first Friday motion day, right, I come in and of course it's all the dark suits and Michelle's sitting in the side. And I knew that would happen. And today I'm proud that there are a lot more women lawyers. I'll tell you, the women lawyers have not broken the glass ceiling in the law firms yet. And that's still an issue, and they're working at that, okay? But, you know, that was one of my first chilling experiences of being the only woman in the courtroom. But I was ready because I was prepared. I prepared my brief, and I was going to get there. I knew I was going to rock it, and I knew I was going to do a great job, and I was prepared for the judge and everything like that. That's an easy one, right? You think that's intimidating, right? That was easy. I'm going to tell you a fun one. When I was a young lawyer, I was introduced to this social club in Trenton. It was called the Trenton Club. Wayne knows the Trenton Club because Wayne had been there, okay? And the Trenton Club was like a 100-year-old club where the men, it was a man's club forever. It wasn't until the 90s when they actually admitted women to the Trenton Club. And at the point that I was brought there by a senior partner in my law firm for a particular event, I had learned that there were about, you know, less than 10 women who had become members of the Trenton Club. So we were going to this annual event, and the idea of this annual event is it was like a social. And when you sat down to dinner, they had this tradition of telling jokes. So now you think about it, it's like an all-men's club and there's hardly women there. So I go there, I am all of about 25 years old, young female lawyer, okay? And I'm thinking there'll be a handful of women there. I'm like, no women here. Zero at this dinner, 0 women there. So I'm in a room and I'll say there's about 55 men, many of them much more senior than I, given the type of place this was. And so at the beginning of the event, everybody's having some cocktails and whatever. It's supposed to be casual. You get to know people. So the president of the club comes over to me and goes, so Michelle, I just want to let you know we're so excited that you're here today. I'm here with the senior member of my law firm. And says, so we have this history of telling jokes. Anybody knows I'm a horrible joke teller, right? Telling jokes. And so when we start, I just want to let you know, I'm going to call on you first so that you can set the tone for the evening. My God, right? So not only was I like already nervous, now I'm like, okay, I'm like, oh my God, okay. So I'm thinking, okay, come on, Michelle. It's like, okay, it can't be the joke about like the sheep. It can't be like, you know, I have these stupid little jokes that I tell. Okay. So the moment comes, and I took some time and I thought, and then they call on me, you know, because he said, and we want everybody to know that there's a woman here, right? That was the whole thing, is setting the tone. So he calls on me, and I rose, and I stood up, and I said, thank you so much. I said, at this time, I would like to relegate to my senior partner, Mr. Robert Backus. Now, the reason why I could do that is Mr. Robert Backus, he was the senior member of my law firm, one of my mentors. Just a few days before that, he was a general in the Army, by the way, Mr. Robert Backus. That's why I still call him Mr. Robert Backus, right? He had just explained to me a few days before about how when you are in a leadership position, a manager, right, you can delegate. You can delegate down, right? But when you're at a certain level, you can never delegate up, or you can even delegate collaterally, right? You can only relegate. Relegate across to someone, relegate to someone who's higher than you, delegate down. So I thought, wow, I just had this, you know, mentoring life experience a few days before, and I was able to put it into action when I could relegate the joke to Mr. Robert Backus, who took it away from there, and I was saved for the moment. So no matter the crazy situation you're in, something is going to come to you, and you're going to be able to get yourself there and lean into it. But, okay, be open to new opportunities. You never know where you are on any given day when your next biggest opportunity is coming to you. Now, I told you all my career path, right, was to be a lawyer. it wasn't just a lawyer. My career path was to be a judge. I always thought that I wanted to go to college, to go to law school, to become a lawyer, to become a judge. I'm standing here today, clearly I am not a judge. And that is because different opportunities presented themselves to me along my career path. As much as I wanted to be that lawyer, one day, because of the relationships that I built out in my community, I was on the board of the Regional Chamber of Commerce. Met a lot of business people, and of course, as an attorney, you need to build clients, so this was my way of building my clients, if you will. But because of how I handled myself in my role with the chamber, took on some leadership positions there, just like you're doing here at Berkeley, right? Creates new opportunities when you do that, right? I co-chaired a committee at the chamber with a gentleman who was the CEO of the AAA in New Jersey at that time. It was Central West Jersey AAA Club, now AAA Mid-Atlantic. So he and I were having lunch one day at the Trenton Club, ironically, and he heard me talking about it was coming into the turn of the century. It was coming to 1999, becoming 2000. And I was an associate in a law firm, and I felt like I needed to break out. This law firm, things weren't exactly what I wanted. And I said, yeah, I think in 2000, I'm going to be looking for a new opportunity with a new law firm. Don't know what that looks like. But he and I were just chatting. So January 2nd, he invites me to a meeting in his office, and we're talking, and he says to me, you know, did a lot of employment law, business and employment law, and he said, you know, Michelle, I have a void in my executive leadership here at AAA. I really need someone who understands employee relations. He goes, I think you'd be perfect. So I'm sitting there, now this is like AAA. I want to be a judge. Remember, I was like on that career to be a judge, and I'm sitting there. Now, who's had those V8 moments, I call them, like it's the duh-ha moments, right? And he's talking, Don Gagnon, and he's talking, and all of a sudden, I'm seeing his lips move, and my brain is somewhere else, right? And my brain is going, what? I think this guy's offering me a job, you know? And immediately, I'm 10 spins ahead. Wait a minute, how can you offer me a job? I want to be a judge. I'm a lawyer. I can't leave private practice. This is whatever, my whole career was about, blah, 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 blah. And he's talking and talking, my brain's going and going. And so then the meeting ends, and I leave, and I get home. And I got home a little later that night. I had some event I had to go to or something. And my husband was home before me, and he's sitting on the couch. And I walk in, and I'm all bubbly. And I'm like, Neil, ask me how my day was, And I explained this to him, and I start the whole thing with, but Neil, I can never leave private practice, because I went to lawyer to become a judge, to, this is my career path. And he does the VA dumb moment with me, and he goes, Michelle, he goes, let's talk about AAA. He goes, look at this opportunity staring at you right now. And I'm like, wow, you're right? So now if I kept those blinders on, I remember about focus and commitment, but if I went through life with those blinders on, I never, ever would have had that opportunity. Well, long story short, I went to AAA. It was a great move in my life. I got this executive level experience. And each part of my life after that was about a unique opportunity presenting itself. Because just a year later, after I made that big jump to what I call pseudo-corporate America, right, that little AAA club merged with a big club. And now I had these other choices and changes I need to make in my life. And that's the next thing that takes me to adapt and be flexible. The ability to be adaptive and flexible in your life is so important, and timing means everything. Sometimes an opportunity presents itself, but it's not the right time for that opportunity. And what happened for me in my AAA world was, after this big merger, they were moving our corporate headquarters to Delaware. At that point, my twins today are 26 years old, they were in 6th grade. I was very involved in my community. Remember I said I love civic activity? In my town of Robbinsville, serving on my school board and doing all this great stuff, and my twins were in 6th grade. I would have had to lift up and move to Delaware, because I couldn't do that commute from where I lived in New Jersey. And while that was a tremendous opportunity, and I knew I was on 3 different succession paths on the executive leadership in that organization, I couldn't do that at that time. It wasn't the right point in my life. So I had to pivot. I had to be flexible. And that created new opportunities for me, where I came back and I ran the Regional Chamber of Commerce in my community, where now I got to be the business advocate for Central New Jersey. And I got to put that passion back in, and that was all good. So it's important that timing, flexibility, adaptability, that work-life balance when you have children, everything in your life has a right time, and sometimes you need to skip one opportunity, but later the investment will come back to you 10 times over. And I truly believe that, because those opportunities and those investments have paid off over time. So I want to wrap up with the whole thing of, it doesn't matter what the skills are, you got to put them to work in the right way. And this came up earlier. We talked about walking the talk, how important it is to walk the talk. It's one thing to be passionate, to be committed, and everything else. If your team doesn't see you standing right alongside of them all the time, right, those skills aren't going to mean much. And a real quick example of this is, and Wayne, my colleague who runs membership at BIA, stood alongside me with this. Wayne and I worked at DEP during Superstorm Sandy. And I was the assistant commissioner. I was responsible for water resource management. Can you imagine being New Jersey's water girl after Sandy? Okay. Oh my God. We literally lived at the state police headquarters for about 3 weeks, right? I knew, and it was so challenging. I had about a dozen of my staff there every day trying to make sure that we were keeping water treatment facilities online, that we were getting diesel around the state, that critical emergency things were happening, right? But I knew if I just walked in there and kind of barked orders at people, it wouldn't kind of be the same. And so I made sure from 5 a.m. to midnight every day, I was there alongside my team, right? In the trenches together. Not here's me and here's you, and I just tell you what to do, right? We were all there together, doing it together. And when you walk the walk, when you stand alongside your team and you work along with them, that's when things really happen. And that's that empowering and collaboration. Okay? Another thing, how do you put it in? Empower all those around you. The quote you took from our event. That was so true. You are not a good leader unless you empower others around you to be good decision makers in and of themselves. Help them along. Give them the skills that they need, and then hold them accountable. If they trip up, dust them off. Explain what might have gone wrong, and then help them to be strong the next time. If they keep tripping up, then you got another discussion to have, right? Because you do have to hold them accountable. But empower those people around you and be collaborative. You know, the most important thing is bringing people together. I'm proud of the fact that you called me a master collaborator, because if there was something I'd be proud of, man, that makes me feel proud. Thank you so much. The last thing, so important. Everything you do, humility. Do it with humility. Empathy for others. If you have the skills and you deliver those skills the right way, chances are you're going to be recognized. When you're recognized, it's not about you. It's about the cause. It's about why you stood up and why you were doing what you did. That's significantly important. Don't ever forget that. So I have a premise that I came across years ago while I was preparing a staff retreat at AAA, because I was responsible for employee relations. And the theme, and I live by this, and I share this with my colleagues all the time, if you work based upon values you truly believe in, the result comes naturally. You have a set of values, personal values, professional values. If you work to those values every day, you live your values every day, what you are trying to achieve, the result will come naturally. If you get up every day just to ring the bell and hit the result, and those values fall out, you may hit the bell, but you're not going to hit it the same way, and that team is not going to come along with you. Your team will always be there when you live and work by your values, and together you're all going to hit the results. So with that, I want to thank you so much. There's so much great energy and passion in this room. I know you all are going to walk away and you are going to do amazing things for our great state of New Jersey and for your communities. Thank you very much, and do we have time for a question?
We have time for a couple of questions from the audience for Michelle. If you'd like to, would anyone like to ask a question of Michelle?
Shy, no.
This is Elisa Charters. I have to say, she is not shy. One of our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all of these words of advice and wisdom. Very meaningful, I think, to everyone here,
Thank you.
no matter what level we're at and
Thank you.
what point in our lives we're at. So we talk about women's empowerment. We talk about business in New Jersey, civic duty. It all stems around, success of women, right? We're trying to elevate the success of women. There is still this issue of equal pay. And while I believe our governor has made measures to, start those conversations in a very serious way, what's happening in reality across companies? Because there's tremendous disparities, especially for the women I represent, which are Latinas. And there's a 46% differential in pay at this point, which is unheard of, almost 50%.
So one bigger sense, and then I'll drill more specifically down to that. One really good thing, we do a lot of surveying at BIA, and we also participate in surveys. And we recently participated for the second year in a diversity survey with Taft Communications. And some of the questions we asked in there purposefully about was, are we moving the needle in the workplace on issues? I was very proud of the results this year that showed that while work environment still isn't what we want it to be, that women and all people of diversity are feeling more comfortable having the discussions in the workplace. And they feel that the workplaces are more open and transparent to have these discussions, and I think that is critical and significantly important. So this is an evolution that takes a lot of time, but to me, that was a key point that people feel, and it was a big jump in the margin, people feel that work environments are much more open and transparent to having discussions about lack of equality or concerns about how people are treated in the workplace. So that's a really good news. The second piece is we don't have enough data yet to see what's happening in gender in terms of pay equity. But yes, all the seeds are there now to level the playing field. Now, there's two sides to this, though, because, and I always like to say this because we have many, many examples of it. There's a lot of, inherently, we treat people differently because of things that happen in our lives, right? We have a lot of businesses where you may have people having pay equity, but on its face, you can't just look at it and say, oh, it's because there's discrimination here. And I want to give you an example, and I want you to think about this because it's kind of the other side of this coin. And when I stand up and talk for business, these are the things that I have to always remind people of, okay? We have, it's interview day, and there's 2 doors. And there's interviewer number 1 behind door number 1, and interviewer number 2 behind door number 2. Man walks into door number 1, woman walks into door number 2. Regardless if the interviewer is a man or a woman, okay? Got a man behind in door number 1 interviewing, a woman is interviewing door number 2. The job is whatever the position is, right? But the salary is about $100,000. Now, when you're in a company, there are ranges for salaries. The actual range for the salary is about 80 to 120. But these 2 folks were told, you know, you have discretion, you know, try and bring these people in for $100,000, okay? Both interviews go great, and these 2 people are getting the jobs. Equal jobs, we're hiring 2 people, right? The man is offered the job, and a person reaches across and says, position's $100,000. And the man comes back and says, that's really great, I need 110. Now, the range is 80 to 120. The hirer has discretion to do a little bit more, okay? Okay, I can do 110, great, we have a deal. Door number 2, the woman. I'd like to offer you the job, it's $100,000. She says, thank you very much, when do I start? Now, this is true, okay? Women don't negotiate like men do, all right? So this is an example of, from day 1, how disparity starts in terms of wage. You add that on to now, a year later, you get a percentage increase on your base. His goes up more, hers goes up, but not the same. Maybe she takes a few years off to raise her family, steps out, he continues to work, goes up. So there's a lot of reasons why we have pay inequities that don't have to do with discrimination. We have ones that have to do with discrimination, but I always like to also tell the story of why sometimes we have pay equity, and we have to be honest and have a good discussion about how we level the playing field given all these different factors. The answer there is women, and we do this at BIA, hone up on those negotiation skills, all right? These are the types of skills that we need to build in women so that when they walk in, they go, 100's nice, I need 110. And they're not nervous to say it, they say it with confidence because they know they're worth 110, okay? Thanks for bringing that up. It's a really, really important issue. Great, you good?
Thank you, Michelle.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone. We're not done yet. Thank you, thank you. We're not done yet. Do you know that Michelle oversees the largest employer organization in the nation? The members of NJBIA employ more than 1 million people in the state of New Jersey. So let's hear it for NJBIA and Michelle.
Thank you so much.
Don't go anywhere. We have a special presentation for you from our president. Michael, do you want to take? Sure. Okay, take the dais here.
So Michelle talks about so many good things. If you don't have a takeaway from what Michelle was saying today, you are either sleeping or dead. So, and I hope it's one more than the other, but if you were sleeping, you really missed out on something. Michelle talks about having the skill and delivering on the skill, and that's what's so important. Michelle is a perfect example of someone who has a wonderful skill set that she developed through design, through knowing her goal, and she's delivering on it every single day. So this is a person that you should model because she does really fabulous things. So as I mentioned very earlier, I said we have a coin here at Berkeley College about knowing your goal. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to give this coin that we give to every one of our associates at Berkeley College to Michelle, and hopefully she will proudly display this in her office. And every time she looks at it, occasionally when you look at the things that are all the little tchotchkes and things that you have on your bookshelves there, that you'll remember the time that you inspired the Berkeley College students to really achieve great things. You're not going to know exactly what they will have achieved, but you know you did great things. So thank you very much,
That's
Michelle.
outstanding. Thank you so much.
Okay, This is the ultimate photo opportunity. We do this in New York. We're going to do it in New Jersey now. And your smiles have to be bigger. Otherwise, the New York photo is going to win. Mick, our photographer, is going to come up here. We're going to get Michelle and Michael right here in the middle. Everyone stand, please. And close the space in this aisle. Come on over here. Kelly, where are you? Everybody know Kelly Dempsey? I call her vitamin K and vitamin D. Without her, this event doesn't happen. She's really the manager, and come over here. And our director of media relations, Kelly, here, right here. This is you, this is you, this is us. And our director of media relations, Eileen Greenfield, who gets the word out about this. Okay. Go right here. Oh my gosh, this is it, all these bosses. That's the thing. Okay, so we're going to give a big smile, and also we have a video camera. We'll take a picture, and then I want to do a shout out. All right, get those 3 fingers in your center here. Are you feeling it? One more thing, don't go anywhere. The other thing about Women's Empowerment Week, Entrepreneurship Week, is that there's a compilation video that gets put together. We want to get a head start on 2019. Our mission at Berkeley College is to empower students to achieve lifelong success in dynamic careers. So what we want to do is do a little video about Berkeley College empowers students, okay? So we're going to do this. We're going to say, Berkeley College empowers students, Berkeley College empowers women. You like that? Is that okay, Michael? Okay, we're getting our pom-poms out. Ready? Berkeley. Okay. You're going to have to tell us about cheese when you get on the panel. Oh, cheese. Okay. Oh, that smile. These are those colloquialisms that we have to. Oh, the V8 moment. Okay. So Berkeley College empowers students. Berkeley College empowers women. Okay, one more time. Berkeley College empowers students. Berkeley College empowers women. Awesome. Okay, here we go. Countdown? Okay, we're going to do a countdown. We're going to do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Berkeley College empowers students. Berkeley College empowers women. Woo! Oh, on one take. Love it. Thank you. We're just going to refashion our panel here for a minute. So you can breathe, take a deep breath. And we're just going to move a chair off of this panel, please. One of our panelists is going to be joining us at the second panel instead of this panel. I'd like to thank our faculty and our students, our faculty who made this a priority, this event a priority today, to bring your students here. And I want to introduce you to Mary Wagner, who is a faculty member in the Larry L. Lewing School of Business and also served as an interim dean at the Berkeley College School of Graduate Studies. She's been with us. This is her second year moderating a panel for our Women's Entrepreneurship Week panel. So, Mary, are you here? Oh, okay. You know why I'm doing this? Okay, I'm looking over here because Mary was sitting right there. So, Mary, where are you? Here she is. Thanks for doing this.
Could I invite the panelists to please come up? Are you all here? And Zuleika, Sally, Diane, and Allison. Is Linda the one who's coming? Okay. And welcome. And I think we are hitting a changing of class times right now. Is that correct, students? Yeah. Okay. We might see you back in about 15 minutes then. Okay, welcome everyone. As Angela said, my name's Mary Wagner, and I've been with Berkeley for 8 years and have held different positions while at Berkeley. I'm very pleased to be moderating this panel today. It's filled with an amazing group of women. I'm very excited to hear what you're going to say. We're going to start today, though, with brief introductions because we have 45 minutes total and we're running a little late from each of the panelists, and then I'm going to have some questions for them, and I hope we're going to have time at the end for questions from all of you. With your brief introductions, I'd like to play off something that Michelle did, and if you could give an introduction and then end with 3 words that you think describe you, I'd appreciate it. So why don't we start with Allison at the end? Yes, I went the opposite direction to throw people off, actually.
Okay, so I'm a lawyer, and I got a little freaked out when I was told that I had to condense my life into 2 minutes. So I'll be honest about that, full candor. My introduction is essentially that I'm an attorney. I've been an attorney since 2003. I started my career as a family law attorney. I've been a family law attorney my entire career, so that deals with divorce, child custody, child support, domestic violence, and child abuse and neglect parental representation. So a little bit about me. I grew up in a household that required education and success. I have a brother that's 2 years older than me, but the requirements were a little bit different for us. And so my brother, who wasn't academically successful, he ultimately became successful, but he wasn't academically successful. He was loved no matter what he did. And I was required to make straight A's. So I did. And I grew up and grew very resentful of the fact that I had to be an overachiever. So on the one hand, I was always seeking to be an overachiever. And on the other hand, I was always resentful of being an overachiever. And as a result of that, I actually grew very emotionally broken throughout the course of being a lawyer. One of the things that being a litigator allowed me to do is to be a bully. So I kind of learned that that was the way that I was going to get what I wanted. And I became a very aggressive litigator. That had some positives. It gave me a statewide reputation. I am very well known in the area of child abuse and neglect parental representation for that work, as well as in the area of matrimonial law. But because I was emotionally broken, that had consequences, including that I suffered from anxiety, I suffered from depression, and at some point I became an alcoholic. And in about 2012, I decided that there was enough of that. So I recovered in that 1 year alone from alcoholism, from depression. Okay, so that wasn't a part of the script, guys. Okay, you don't throw me off now. And I also recovered from anxiety. And after all of that, I thought, gosh, now it's time to take a breath. I get to breathe. I get to just coast and enjoy being a lawyer. And I thought that wasn't exciting enough, so I started a law firm. So me and 43 of my clients waged out into the world, and in 2013, I created the Williams Law Group, which is my baby. But through the process of healing all the things that had gone wrong in my life, I also healed as a person. I grew remarkably emotionally as a person. And through that, I was able to grow my law firm 856% in 4 years. And so now, a lot of that came from getting emotional help. I sought the help of a counselor. I also started working with business coaches that helped me to look at things very differently, adopt new approaches. And through all of that evolution, I learned that coaching was really transformative. And so now, in my spare time of running a multi-million-dollar corporation, I also have a coaching business where I help lawyers to grow law firms. And through that work, which has now become my new labor of love, I have the credits of having a multiple seven-figure entity that employs wonderful human beings and helps families all across the state of New Jersey. And I also have a now 6-figure entity that helps lawyers all across the country. And it's still growing.
Impressive.
So that's me in as little close to
Do you
2
have
minutes as
3
I can
words
possibly
to
get
yeah.
it in.
Do you have 3 words to describe yourself?
Oh, God, I just cut out all those words.
I mean, I'd say survivor is one.
I don't like the word survivor. I
I
think
don't-
that's too closely
Yes.
tied to victimhood. I've never been a victim. I made choices.
That's true. Good.
So I would say my words are empowered,
Mm-hmm.
dynamic, and leader.
Sounds good. Yeah. Diane?
Thank you. Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Diane Walsh, and for most of my career path, I was a journalist. As a young girl, I loved writing, and I was first in my family to go to college. I was always very serious about what I wanted, and I decided at a young age, like Michelle decided at a young age, I decided at a young age I wanted to be a newspaper reporter. I thought that was. I grew up in the time when it was Watergate, when everyone was very, taken by the fact that these 2 reporters were able to uncover an amazing story about what was happening in Washington, D.C. So that really left me with a great impression, and I wanted to be a reporter. So I grew up in Hudson County. It's very much an urban setting in Union City, and I was not very sure that the public high school could give me the goal of the college that I wanted. So I decided that I would go to an all-girl private Catholic school. That was the first. It was kind of surprising to my parents. I mean, we were Catholics, and I'm very practicing in my faith. But I was the first one in my family that said, Mom and Dad, would you be able to put me through Holy Rosary? Could you come up with that tuition payment? And that was a lot for them. But they did it, and those nuns, those Palantine nuns, were able to get me to NYU. So I went from a 9-room high school attached to the convent to NYU in downtown New York City. And at NYU, there was a lot of journalists who were my professors. And I learned a lot from them. I learned about hard work. I learned to be assertive, to use my skills, my personality skills, to become a reporter. If you see me, if I stand up, I'm not exactly even 5 feet tall. I'm a small woman. And I've always used that to my own good intentions, because I think because I am small, people do not feel intimidated by me. They don't feel threatened. I have an amenable personality, so I can ask a lot of questions of people in an interview setting, and able to use that to always be really a good reporter. And I'm also very, very hardworking and diligent. So I was a beat reporter for almost 30 years. My beats included Hoboken before it was gentrified. I was in the courthouse for many years covering trials. I was in the courthouse in Bergen County when the defense of being a battered woman was first used to get somebody. She was charged with murdering her husband, and it was when that defense was first used, and she was exonerated of that charge because she was able to bring into the courtroom all the information about he had beaten her for 30 years, and that one night she decided that she couldn't. She knew it was going to be her or him, and she took that gun, and that's what ended his life and gave her a new start on life. So I was a court reporter for many years, and I also was a political reporter for many years. I covered this town, Woodbridge, at one time when McGreevey was the mayor. And I was also involved in the team at the Star-Ledger that won the Pulitzer for breaking news for the coverage of the day when he announced that he was a gay American. And that whole newspaper the next day was devoted to the coverage of that, about what it meant for him, what it meant for this town, what it meant for this state. So I'm very proud to be part of that team, and all the work that was part of that effort, and it was very important to me as a reporter to be part of that. But about 2008, the Star-Ledger was going through some transition. Newspapers are on the decline. I bet many in this room do not read a newspaper on a daily basis. You get your news through your phone, you get it online. So hard copy newspapers were having struggles economically. And it came to a time with the Star-Ledger when they wanted 100 people in the newsroom to take a buyout. And at that point, I was just about 50. And it was kind of a scary moment because I always thought that I would retire as a newspaper person. I put a lot of time and energy into it. When I was at NYU, I was able to do an independent study when I was a junior. And that independent study, I had to talk to some local newspapers. And I talked to some local editors and wrote a paper and gave them that paper, and that turned into an internship. So from the time I was 20 years old, I worked for a newspaper. And I worked nights. 6 nights a week was my first job, writing obituaries in Hudson County. And then for fun, on a Friday night, I got to type the racing chart. So I paid my dues really very well. And, but then in 2008, after working at the Ledger for 24 years, I took that buyout. And that was a scary moment, to move out of newspapers, my comfort zone. But newspapers gave me skills that were very transferable. I was able to take my writing skills, my communication skills, and I walked out. And for a brief time, I worked for a legislator. That wasn't quite a good fit, because for many years I covered the legislators. So to work for one wasn't exactly the right balance for me at that point. But then, due to some networking, I was able to find that there was an opening at the place where I now work, which is Commerce and Industry Association. We're a business group. We're very much like BIA. We're based more in northern Jersey. We have about 900 members, or businesses, that we consider our membership base. So I was able to take those skills and work for Commerce and Industry. And now I think very much, for many years, I was the observer who was writing about the event as a reporter. Now I think I kind of work on the other side. I create events. I create programs. I know what a panel should be, the people that should be speaking to give information to our members. Like tomorrow, we're having a panel about manufacturers, about how do they deal with the tariffs that are now happening in this country on steel and whatnot. So I was able to assemble a group of people to be on that program to speak. And that's what I do now. I create programs for us, for our members. And along the way, I met an attorney when I was covering the courts. He became my husband, and he's a judge today. So I understand that career path, because I've lived it in my own house. And my son is a lieutenant in the Army. And I often hear from him about what it means to be a leader. And he's always worrying about his Joes. He's 24 years old, and he has 19 and 18-year-olds who are his Joes that he worries about. And I'm very proud of the leadership skills that he has. And I think that's a little bit due to his dad and I, because he's seen what works in our home. We're very civically involved. We're very involved in our church. We believe in our community. We love being in New Jersey, and that's me.
And your 3 words?
Genuine, kind, hardworking.
Nice. Sally Bush.
Hi, everybody. So I have a little bit of a different path. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, proud of it. And I was at college at Northwestern University. And my father and I were speaking one day. I'm an only child. And he said to me, I have a CPA practice. He was a sole practitioner. And he said, I have the ability to serve more clients. I just don't have time to find them. And immediately, my entire career changed. I had been at Northwestern in speech pathology, having this whole career, not a judge, but something in that regard that I wanted to do in terms of helping people and being in the science area. And I thought, what a wonderful opportunity to grow a business with my father. Now, keeping in mind that I was in my 20s and really young, I was just really 2 years into undergraduate school, it was pretty remarkable to have put that kind of responsibility and ownership on me. But I think it changed the career trajectory that I then ultimately went on. Because there was no, forgive me, social media, there was no website. We had limited ability. Word-of-mouth marketing was really the best thing we had, and particularly in a service environment. And so my job at an incredibly young age was to create a presence in the community for my father's small CPA firm, and to get clients to come to us, and once they came, of course, to retain them. Whether that was events, whether that was newsletters, we literally typed newsletters, took them to the printer, and they printed them out, we mailed them. With clip art, in case you need to know this, there is such a thing as clip art, and it was a book, and you clipped it, and then you glued it on, and that became the image on there. So we had a lot of different things. But what is so extraordinary for me is that the premise remains the same today. All of the things that I learned from him regarding building important relationships has been the heart of all the marketing I've ever done ever since. We did eventually grow a nice practice, but a solo practice, and he merged that with a slightly bigger firm in the city who had never heard the word marketing director because it didn't exist. We just kind of made up a career for me. And so eventually the world caught up in an important Arizona state bar case where they did agree, all the way went to the Supreme Court in the United States, that professional service firms could market. And when that happened, an entire career was created, and I was part of that career. And so what I'm so lucky to have had is I didn't have the typical challenges that someone might have trying to break into a career path. My career path was there. There were other challenges, of course. If anyone has ever worked even in the summer in a family business, you know that the standards are very high and they never end. And I have a friend who recently heard me tell a story, and he was horrified, and I thought it was a funny story, that when I had my first child, my father came into the hospital with materials that I was in the middle of sorting and doing some work on, and he brought them to the hospital because he assumed I would just keep working, even though I just had this new baby. It was like, my roommate in the hospital was like, "What is that?" And he brought over the tray that you're supposed to eat lunch on, and he was laying out the work, and he just thought I would keep going, and I did, because it was in our blood. And I think that it gave me the opportunity to be more passionate and more relationship-driven because it was ours. But it also taught me that that extends to any career you have. And so I did have the opportunity to have ownership and responsibility at a time when most people don't get trusted with that level of, they don't have that level of trust from their boss. And when we'd argue at night, my mother always turned to me and said, "Don't worry, honey, I won't let him fire you." So I had a job for life, but it went on 24 hours a day. So the alternative to that was when we'd sit down to dinner and she'd say, "No business." He'd say, "Okay." She'd put the food down. He'd say, "Just one question." My mother would be like, "God darn." So I was immersed in it, but I brought that with me. And I think that that has been a hallmark for me and a difference in the way I've approached my career because I came from the inside. And I knew the value of every client that was a piece of gold for us. So.
And your
So
three
that's what I've
words?
done. So I have to say my 3 words. My daughter-in-law is a veterinarian, and she always sums me up in one word. She says, "I'm a Labrador Retriever, wagging my tail." So I don't know if wagging my tail are the 3 words. And I'm not sure I'm always pleased when she says it. I think of a standard poodle or something. But I think I would say I'm relationship-driven, I'm empathetic, and I'm a problem solver.
And next year, my question can be, what dog would you describe yourself as?
Exactly, you should, because I'm definitely a retriever.
Yes.
And I'm a cat person, too.
And last but not least, Zuleika.
Hello. I just have to say I'm honored to be on the table with such precious and very educated, and I'm honored to be here. But, so I'm going to start in the middle, and I won't take up a lot of time. I just wanted to, I've been on a very long journey, and the journey is when you don't know what you truly want to do, right? And anybody heard of the Bishop T.D. Jakes, okay? So he talked about tight space. Anybody seen what he said when he talked about tight space? And tight space pretty much means you know kind of where you want to go, but you're still on that path to secure that journey. And as you're getting there, you're just trying your best to deal with the everyday pressures of trying to achieve. You're living a tight space, and you've got to continue to be positive. And as I look at all of you, I think I see my children. I see my son at 16. I see my daughters at 20 and 22 trying to, get through this tight space because things are not given, all right? We have to work hard to achieve it. And as you go through this tight space, there are going to be obstacles. There's going to be challenges. I was always a child going to my father, what should I do, Daddy? What should I be? And every 5 seconds I would change my journey, right? That costs money, right? But it's true. It's part of it, right? But as you're here, I look at all of you. I admire all of you because you're at the right place. But the question is, what will you do with the opportunity while you're here, right? So you have to do a lot of self-reflection and really being accountable for what you really want to do and put a plan in place. I don't know how else to say it because time is very limited, right? You're here. Take advantage of it. In the middle, I'll just jump straight to the middle. I was the vice president of a not-for-profit Hispanic women's organization. It's called National Hispanic Corporate Council. And we were charged really with partnering with Fortune 1000 corporations. you know, and any additional corporations like Coca-Cola, Nabisco, Chase Banks, all kinds of banks. And the thing about that is we had to teach Hispanic women managers how to get into the C-suite, into the boardroom. And so while the research that was done said that Hispanic managers, it was very easy for them to be managers, the research did not support us getting into the boardroom. And today I feel that that's unfortunately still the case. The problem is when we partnered with these organizations, well, we sort of didn't look it, we didn't dress it, our colors tend to be brighter, the food we kind of ate was, you know, your fried foods and your, your black beans and all of that. And so we had to teach our Hispanic, Latino, Afro-Latino women, about themselves, how to manage a team, and how to grow an organization. Because the steps that it took to be managers, and they were very effective at being managers, well, we're so different to get into the boardroom. And that still exists today, and it's unfortunate. So I bring this up because we work so hard. We're still striving to get there. So a lot more research and work has to be done. So that's
Your 3 words?
I'll say lioness, and I'll explain that later. The second one is passionate about careers because, and the third is being an educator, teaching children from college. Faculty members are the most important teachers, are the most important role models because, like, I look at my 16-year-old son, and I want the teacher that he gets in every single class to make him passionate about moving forward in his career. So I didn't have that, so I'm a strong advocate for it.
Excellent. I'm going to jump to a question that you can pick and choose who goes first when answering it. First is, what makes a successful leader? And I would like you to also consider in this question, is there something about women that gives them special skills that women may have that would make them successful leaders, can help them be successful leaders?
Sure, I guess I'll go first. Okay, so I would say that leadership, one of the things that I think most people struggle with leadership is the difference between leadership and management. And they are very distinct skills. You cannot merge the two. You cannot be in the energy of one when you're focused on the other. And it's very important to learn the skills that are distinctive to both. One thing that happens as a leader is that you're often by yourself. And so I remember when I was asked to give a quote for what I thought would really be an example of leadership, I said that leaders really, you have to stand by what you believe in. You have to be, you have to pursue whatever the course is, no matter who disagrees with you. People are always going to disagree with you. There will always be someone who has an opinion. You should not solicit opinions every time you have a thought. A lot of times I think women like to process through ideas and get a lot of opinions and have a lot of discussions. Sometimes I just go decide things, and sometimes I announce them. Because I've decided, I've done my research, I've read what I needed to read, I went to the source of the information. I'm not suggesting that you need to be insular. You should certainly seek out guidance and seek out professional opinions, but don't try to be friends with everybody. You cannot be friends with everybody. You should be always concerned about doing the best for everyone, and that will inherently mean that somebody's going to get less of what they want than you might otherwise want to give them. But you always have to consider the whole over the individual.
I think one of the differences is that you can be a good person and not necessarily be a good leader. And I think what happens with a leader also is that your job is to have everyone else be their best. So it goes beyond the fact that you're kind or empathetic or thoughtful. Those are important qualities to have when you're interacting with people, but also that you're able to inspire or motivate or get the right tools into the person's hands that they need in order for them to succeed. So understanding other people and integrating them into the overall goal and vision that you have for the organization, and whether that's role modeling or whether that's mentoring, but being able to make sure that you nurture the next person. I think that's what sometimes distinguishes the leader from the manager and or another nice person. You know, sometimes also you're a leader informally. No one actually came along and said, you're the CEO, but everyone looks to you. They just resonate with your energy or your concern or your vision, and they know you're there to help them be their best. And so you become a leader even sort of accidentally or just because you're not named doesn't mean you're not important.
Sure, okay, so I just want to explain what I meant by lioness. I want to give you a little analogy. So you know how when a deer or an animal sees a lion, what do? They get nervous, they start running, they bang into each other, and they're just not focused, right? But what is that? And a lioness is a female to a lion. So what does that lioness do then? She what? That's right. She watches. She's strategic. She sits there and observes. And she waits. And she waits for the right opportunity. Right? And so, did you know, here's an interesting fact, that the lioness is the one that does the hunting. Didn't know that, right? So, but the point about this is she has these characteristics, and you had mentioned the differences between, why the women. Well, she has these characteristics. Number one, she's smaller, right? She's agile. And she has the ability to sprint and get to where she needs to go. The male has this, what does he have on his head? And so what happens with this mane? Is it, right? It sort of makes him, he doesn't breathe as well. So he steps back and let her do the work. And that's how I consider a leader for women. As women, we are the lioness because we have that agility, that skill set that we need to wait for that opportunity and to really be strategic. I love that word, in getting the job done. So, it's having the confidence, it's having also the passion. There's a motivational speaker. His name is Eric Thomas. Has anybody heard of him? And I love his phrase because his phrase says, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. And I think that's what all our children today, the millennials today, they're so, let me have it now, right? But they need to put take it an extra step, really, really want it so bad that I can't breathe. So that's
Great.
I agree with everything that was said on this table, so it's hard to be the last speaker. But I always believe that the leader is the person with the vision, who sees the goal, sees the purpose, and is able to recruit others around them to adopt that vision. And I think that's important. And women bring very much to that equation their ability to collaborate, because women have that instinctually, I think, because they can nurture. And the nurturing instinct in a woman gives her a kind of an edge, I think, in leadership in many ways. And then getting back to my core as a journalist, communication. If you have a vision, you have to be able to communicate it to others, to tell them as to why this is something that's good, not only for them, but for the greater good. And that's what a leader does, to recognize the greater good and be able to communicate it and enlist others through your abilities. And that's what I would add.
Excellent. Michelle mentioned in her openings that there was times where she was the only woman in the room. Have any of you encountered that? Or I can say for myself, I've been fortunate in that I've had a lot of women leaders around me in the companies I've worked for, but there have been times where there might be more than one woman in the room, but the women are still not being heard.
I'm going to guess that there's absolutely nobody that has ever not experienced being the only woman in that room, or one of a very few. I have the good fortune of being the president of an organization here called the Association for Corporate Growth. I also sit on the board of Commerce and Industry and have attended many also BIA programs. And even if you're not the only one, although I have been the only one, you are certainly in the minority. And I have a running bet with one of the board members at ACG, the Association for Corporate Growth. I tell them when we have more than 4 women in the room of the 120 that come to our monthly breakfast, then I'm buying lunch. But otherwise, he's buying lunch. And it's astounding. It's sometimes disheartening. But also what you bring to the table is you stop thinking of yourself as a woman business leader, and you just know you're a leader. I'm the president of the organization. I have value to add and things to share and a vision, and I expect to be listened to. It is frustrating sometimes to know that a good half of the population is abdicated their role or has in that moment and is not in the room where deals are being done and leads are being exchanged and people are building relationships. But until that happens, I think everyone has to assume when they walk through the door that they are probably going to be potentially the only woman there, unless you say this is a women's leadership conference, this is women leading the way, this is whatever it might be, and then you have that outpouring of constituents. But otherwise, it's someone, Michelle said, being a woman in a man's world. And someone, I'll hear people say, I'm in construction, I'm in a man's world, I'm in law, I'm in a man's world. I always want to say, what world isn't dominated by men? It's just, that's who worked first. You know, we've come to the game really after World War II. We're new to the situation, and maybe nursing and maybe social work, but other than that, you're not going to dominate until we work at dominating, so, or at least being half.
Anyone else?
I guess I'll add in here. I probably am one of the few people that doesn't have the unique, I'm the only woman in the room scenario. One of the things that I started my career doing is I always wanted to be an employment attorney. And I was very much interested in labor and employee rights. And at some point I was interested in management and management side labor law. And that ultimately didn't become my path. I fell into practicing family law and fell in love with it. So there were always a lot of women attorneys around. But the experience that I had in the world that I chose, which was the child abuse and neglect market, and I call it a market even though there really wasn't a market. I had to create the private sector market of representing parents in that world, because 98% of those cases are brought by, are handled by the public defender's office. I've cornered the market on the other 2%, largely because I created the market. But in large part, when I would go into court, I was not a part of the team of public defenders that were handling those cases. And so when I would make arguments, I would kind of get poo-pooed. And my ego didn't take too well to that. So when I started to realize that judges weren't listening, I started appealing them aggressively. And when they started to realize that, oh God, here she comes again, we need to at least say something to pretend like we're listening to her, things started to change. But my point of giving you that example is really to liken it to what happens when a woman goes into the room and focuses on the fact that she's not one of the boys. The more you focus on something, the bigger it becomes. So if you go in thinking, I am the only woman, or I am the only black person, or I'm the person with the southern accent, or whatever makes you different, you're going to bring attention to what makes you different. I just showed up being the smartest. That's what I focused on, and that's what people started to see, and that's what people perceived. So any advice that I would give to any person that's starting their career is always just focus on being the best. And being the best doesn't mean necessarily having the most book smarts. It can be that. You have to think about the environment that you're in and what skill you need in that environment. So sometimes it means being the most aggressive. Sometimes it means being the most conciliatory. Sometimes it means being the most agile at working different relationships. And women do have a benefit with relationships. We're kind of nurtured in the world of holding hands and singing Kumbaya and making sure that everybody has their piece and being very egalitarian. So take whatever it is that you need in the space and just focus on that. Don't focus on being a female, because that's very rarely a winning proposition in the world that we live in.
Yeah, I had no intention of ever bringing attention to myself. When I was working at National Hispanic Corporate Council, I was able to go into the boardroom to provide issues and feedback to the board members. But I was new. So here I go. I was the first up. I got to the meeting early. I sat down in a chair, and I decided to talk about issues. Fun. And I sat down, the chairs didn't have names on it, but I just sat myself down. Later on, we went to dinner, and this one person, she just kept looking at me and saying to me, wow, you are amazing. And I'm like, well, thank you. And, you're just so funny. I'm like, okay, what am I so funny about? She's like, well, did you realize you sat in the president's chair when you were in the boardroom? I'm like, I had no idea. And then days later, I guess I was overcome. I was just embarrassed because here's protocol. I didn't understand the culture. And as I look back, the chair was the only chair with the phone. had all these special gadgets. I should have known. But when you're not from that world, when you're not accustomed to it, you're going to make mistakes along the way, and that's how you learn and grow and develop yourself. So be good to yourself. Sometimes it's hard. You have to overcome these obstacles. And I have to tell you, as I look back, I do remember it, but now I laugh, So. Yeah, exactly.
Did you have anything to add? Or?
Just when you find yourself in that room where you might be the only woman or one of the few women, I think if you know what your mission is or you know why you're there, that gives you the strength to do whatever you need to do. Oftentimes, I found myself in a room in a courtroom covering a trial where there are all high-paid attorneys, public defenders and whatnot. I never felt that I couldn't ask the question. Always knew that I was there because I represented the people who the First Amendment calls for, as that we all have that right to know. So therefore, I felt that I was grounded. I had a purpose, and my purpose was, and my job was to fulfill whatever I needed to do to get that story. So as long as you know why you're there and what needs to be done, you don't have to feel awkward in any way. And that gives you the strength to move forward.
Fabulous. I'm going to ask one more question to the panel, and then I want to leave some time, open it up to the audience for questions. So the last question I want to ask you is, it was mentioned again earlier, talking about being civically involved and also contributing to your communities. So what are some of the social causes you're involved in, and why is it important, do you think, for anyone, not just women, to reach outward?
I'm not shy. Does anybody
Yeah.
want to? I have the good fortune in my career of being able to meld something most people can't do, my personal life in a great way and my professional life. When I moved here 16 years ago, I didn't know anyone. My children were grown. I wasn't meeting people at Little League or at the Park District or whatever. So as I was doing my best to build a brand for my firm, I also had the opportunity to get involved in the community. And with no other real responsibilities, it gave me more free time. And so I am on the board for the Center for Nonprofits, which is an umbrella group helping all of nonprofits. And if you represent or volunteer at a nonprofit, you should know about the center. Other groups I've joined are business-oriented, but still about people. And whether that I'm also have been involved with the Visiting Nurses of Northern New Jersey. And at my firm, we have about 300 nonprofits that we serve. We're an accounting firm. And that community, I reach out to them all the time. And so someone will call, they need a new board member. Someone wants to have a discussion with their board about branding and marketing. So I have a number of hundreds, really, of nonprofits that I have the opportunity and the honor of interacting with. And I think if you're living your life, just getting up in the morning, going to your job, hopefully, putting your paycheck and using it wisely, whatever you're doing, and that's it, I think you're missing an awful lot. I don't know how to go through life not recognizing the impact we have on each other. And it doesn't even have to be a formal connection to a nonprofit. Sometimes you can just have a young woman or a young man that you nurture or mentor that comes up to you at some meeting and says, can we talk later? Do you mind if I call you? But knowing that we're all connected to each other and knowing how important the community is, I don't think you can avoid every now and then raising your hand and saying, I'll serve on that committee, or I'd like to join that board, or I'd like to help with that project. I think it's really critical. I'm just lucky that my kids are grown and no one's here and I've got all the time there is. So I have to be careful when I say that. Someone might be asking.
Anyone else?
So I will note that I'm on the steering committee of Women United, which is a division of the United Way. And I started working with them actually through my company. Someone saw a picture of my law firm on social media, and at the time it was 100% female. So we now have 3 men. We're working on it. As soon as you get more than 2 of us in a room, the guys get scared. So we're growing, but at the time that we were all female, of course, Women United saw the firm and saw the pictures and thought, wow, this is a company that looks a little bit different. And I got a lot of flack for those pictures. Quite a few trolls on social media suddenly assumed I was discriminating when I had 5 whole female attorneys working alongside me, because I decided to picture all of my staff. Because I said everyone here is creating solutions for our families, not just my attorneys. And I thought that was quite distinctive relative to what you would see of male pictures. You would see all male law firms, and of course there were no females pictured because they were the support staff, but they weren't actually in the picture. But I digress. I think it's important to note when you are supporting causes that you're, a lot like Sally noted, your work can be a fold over into your private world. So the work that I do in my law firm, I consider to be God's work. That's my personal view of it. I consider it to be important work, so I don't ever consider myself, quote, just working when I'm at my company, or just living when I'm not at my company. I'm always a representative of my company. It bears my name, bears my soul. And so I'm always looking for ways that I can engage with different organizations that will further promote the company, not just to grow the company, but to grow its reach and its value and what it does for society. So in looking at different causes that you might want to support in your professional life, you should also be looking for how that can further your career goal. I think everybody that I've talked to about this issue has a very binary view of it, that you need to have cause and then you need to have profit, as if the two are distinctive. But really, people that are pursuing profit, not only economic profit, but profit in their world, profit for their emotions, profit for their spirituality, profit in terms of being more successful in life, are going to be more successful in business and vice versa. So I'm always looking for ways that I can advance the people that I work with, advance myself, advance my company, and that will inherently tie me to different causes. We've, in the firm this year, we supported Light the Night, which is for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Last year, we supported, our annual charity was Making Strides Against Breast Cancer. Every year, the firm chooses a charity that we support. And then, of course, as causes arise, there's always wills for veterans and things like that. So those opportunities we just make ourselves available to help with.
I just wanted to add something that I've experienced in what I do at Commerce and Industry. A few years ago, we hit upon doing a program that just kind of shows, kind of beats some light into what companies do with their philanthropic kindness or generosity. And that program sort of took off all by itself. We call it Companies That Care. So it just kind of underscores and reinforces the idea that it's very important for all of us to make those connections. And that when we ask companies to tell us the stories over the past year, what they've done with various different community groups for their giving, for their campaigns. And people light up when they talk about that because it's so important to everyone. It's because it's your way of connecting, whether it's you're doing a basic food drive, a clothing drive, whether you're helping veterans in some way. And I can't tell you how important that has become within my organization. We spend like 5 months of the year working on that program because it is such a mainstay. And I think that people need that balance. People just thrive on it, and it gives them, it just fills the space in their life that they need. You know, the 8 hours that you give to work is wonderful, and it's good for your family. It's good for your own enrichment. It's good for your intellectual well-being. But everyone needs to find that outlet to connect with others, and that's a beautiful thing. You know.
Yeah, and I just want to add really quickly is challenge yourself to mentor our young people. They need so badly for you to mentor them. So some of them don't know which way to turn. Some of them don't want to turn to their advisors. Some don't want to turn to their guidance counselors. But if you see someone, you're sitting and you have the degree, you have the education. Use that. That's what we were put on earth, I believe, for. Berkeley, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Berkeley for all the opportunities they give our students. Number one, I don't see many programs where after you graduate, you have a lifetime placement commitment. I mean, really, we spend so much money with Ivy Leagues, and we still don't get that turnaround. But here at Berkeley, it's remarkable. It doesn't matter if you are 50 years old, you can still come back here. All right, don't kill me, Chris Versus. But okay, thank you. Yeah, check me. But it's wonderful. I lead with the help of the VP of HR, a mentorship program, a leadership development program. I'm telling you, the power of mentoring goes very well, and leadership. Those in the leadership positions, they have no problem mentoring. Their doors are open. It doesn't matter how busy they are. They always take the time to do it. And I'd like to thank Angela for always making these programs accessible to not only the students, but, you know, so to get the word out. These things are important. Our young students don't see it too much. So yeah, let's give her a round of applause. So I'm a little passionate because, again, I have 3 children and I'm looking through their eyes and I see the confusion. So just be an advocate for education in them.
I wanted to add, I'm a professor at heart, and so I always like to throw something out for the students. When it comes to things like social causes, I cannot emphasize how incredible it is to get involved early in what you care about. Figure out what you care about and get involved in it, because it will make you feel better, but it's also going to lead to connections. People that are like-minded, and they're going to see that you're a passionate, caring person, and they're going to want to help you. And cannot emphasize enough, when it comes to business and being a woman in business, networking is so important. You need to make personal connections with people. So many of the jobs that people get now are because they know someone. So that's my push for getting out there and getting involved in the things that you care about, because you will meet amazing people and they will find out what an amazing person you are.
And can I say one thing? You're going to also mentor people that don't necessarily look like you.
Yes.
Or you might not understand it. Not to put someone on the spot, but I'd like you to stand up, Morgan Wilson. Morgan is one of my mentees, and he was sort of approached me and asked if I could mentor him. Now, he is a member of the LGBTQ community, so it's sort of kind of hesitant. What could I give Morgan? This is the first for me, right? But through our relationship together, we're learning from each other. And I have to say, I'm honored to be your mentor. And definitely Morgan will be going places. He's graduating in May of 2019 as a fashion, in fashion merchandising and management. So I'd like to give Morgan an applause. Thank you, Morgan.
And I'll give another plug for Morgan. Morgan has never been my student, but Morgan is a person, and I totally recommend this also. He says hi to everyone.
Yes.
He greets everyone. He makes connections with people. And everyone who has ever encountered Morgan wants nothing but the best for Morgan. So that's what I say, like, put yourself out there. Be friendly. Be someone that makes connections with people, and people will remember you. I would now like to open to the audience. Does anyone have any questions for anyone on the panel? And I think yeah, it's for the streaming. I'm behind you.
Kelly has one, she's behind you.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. My name's Angela. I run a small business in Mercer County, and we're always looking for talent. So if anyone would like to, we're in the security business and technical field, but please come and see me if you're not sure what you want to do, and we may be able to find an opportunity for you. I just had to say that. I mean, I'm sitting in the middle of the room, right? I wanted to touch on something that, Mary, you just brought up and has been a theme, I think, of this morning, which is about making connections, but on top of that, building relationships. I'm a recovering introvert. I never used to open my mouth or approach anyone. I was embarrassed. What have I got to offer? Somehow, over 75 years on this planet, I've got over that. But I wanted to ask, what is the secret to not connecting with someone, but to building a relationship, follow up, how you actually build a relationship with them? And maybe you could share if there are examples of things that people have done that have not built good, successful relationships with you in their follow-up. I think sometimes hearing about some of the missteps that people make can be as useful as hearing about the success stories, because you can learn from both. So I'm sorry for the long question, but if there's anything in terms of going from connection to a relationship.
I'll start, and I'm sure everyone here has something to say, but I'll just say quickly that there's a difference between networking and relationship building, and I know we use them synonymously, but they're not. And when you talk about building a relationship, it's not give me your business card, I put it in my purse, I add you to a mailing list, I'm done. So when you have a relationship and you think of the people that mean most to you, it's the two-way street, and it's also the sincerity and the genuineness of you're willing to help someone. So I always feel that when you're building a relationship, you are how can I help you? What do you need? Who do I know that you need to know? What resources do I have that I can share with you? And so a relationship begins. Some may last a very long time, some may be a shorter time, some are opportune in certain circumstances, but it goes much more about an emotional and meaningful involvement than this simple exchange of email addresses and phone numbers. And of course, everyone's busy, and there's not enough hours in a day to have 500 best friends, maybe 495, but it's really hard to do that. But if you're sincere and genuine, and you use the word genuine also, Diane, I think it's really important. People know that you mean it. When things go wrong is when you say, oh, I can introduce you. Michelle Sekirka is great. I'll introduce you. I take your card, and I never follow up. And you don't hear that email from me. And in 15 minutes, you're not seeing me connect you both and saying, we met at an event. Here's Michelle. Michelle, I've met this person, and I think should be important in Mercer County helping with job creations. If you don't do that and you don't intend to follow up, don't say you're going to, because your name, your good name, your reputation is really all you've got. And so when you're going to connect people, go ahead and do so. But it's that connection that makes a relationship that you don't have when you're just exchanging information.
So I want to ask the question, how many introverts do we have in the audience? The ones that are too afraid to raise their hand. I love it. I love it. So most people don't know this about me, and most people don't agree with it when I say it, but I actually am a recovering introvert also. I hated networking, hated it with a passion. When I would go into a room, I literally would have marks in my hands to the point where my hands would be almost bleeding from clenching so hard because I had to sit in a room full of human beings and try to engage. I still am not good at it. You'll note that when you usually see me at events like this, I'm on a corner somewhere. I get overwhelmed when there are a lot of people. I'm just going to put that out there because I know a lot of people feel that and don't want to say it and feel that the right way to network is to be open and engaging. And so you're all out there so I can be this open and engaging. I don't normally do this when I'm in a crowd. So I had to learn how to network in a way that worked for me. And one great resource I would refer you to is a book by Bob Berg. It's called Endless Referrals. And it is about how to create a system around networking that includes going into rooms, having enough of a conversation with somebody that you remember who they are. I put my picture on the business card in case you forget. But having, writing down something about that conversation so you can recall it later. And then when you follow up specifically referencing that conversation. So you would approach the person and say, hi, my name is, I'd like to learn about you. Who are you? Tell me about you, please. You hear enough. You're in a room full of people. For some of us, it's hard to focus when you get a lot of data and you hear too much going on. But just write down a little note. Once you get that note, immediately go back to your office. If you are in an office setting, go back to your home if you're networking or if you're a freelancer. But put time on the calendar to get that done as soon as you leave an event. So include in your time of the event that you're going to go to wherever and you're going to do the follow-up. And the follow-up can be putting names into a CRM, which is customer relationship management software. Or it can be sending out the emails manually, but always do something immediately afterward, and then you get yourself on a system. And a lot of software now can help you with this so that you're following up on a consistent basis with people over a period of time. Because there is just so much data coming at us now. I'm sure a lot of people in this room are like me. You've got 15,000 notifications from Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Your email has 5,000 emails that have come in since this morning. We can easily get overloaded and get bogged down in that stuff. But if you make it into a system and it's something that you can work, then it becomes just another thing for you to do. And then the relationship building can come later. So I never go into a room and say I'm going to create a relationship with someone in the presence of all these people. I can't focus. I can barely hear. I have to look at your words. I'm not really listening to the conversation. I'm trying to hear you. I'm trying to understand. But the relationship can come later. Call the person up, invite them to a meeting in the office. Don't ask them to lunch. Don't make it into a big ordeal. Don't make it into a cost. Make it into a relationship. Go to their office, tell them what you do, and specifically ask for business. You'd be surprised how easy it is to get business by simply asking for it.
Yes, right up front. Multiple questions.
Hello. This is for everybody that's on the panel list. Basically, dealing with the keynote speaker, she stated that us, the women, have not broken the glass ceiling, which I feel that's incorrect because you're a note, you're a lawyer, we have broken it. What will you tell the young women, not just only men, but the young women of today's world? How can they keep that and keep on going and keep it above the level to where there is no glass ceiling?
be a lioness. Be a lioness. You know, the thing about it is you definitely have to have at least the qualifications, which is true, right? And, you know, when you have those qualifications, just always remember that when you're dealing with people, I think you can deal with people on a certain level. But I think it's always that quest to always be driven for what it is you want. Having enough confidence and passion to put you through to this level makes you think and deal in a certain way. That, yeah, I'm a lioness. I belong where I belong. And I demand. There's a quote from Maya Angelou. I don't know if you guys ever heard it. She goes, I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. You guys remember that? So what was the premise behind that? Anybody? What was she saying when she made that phrase?
She was maybe the only person in the room, but she represented
That's right.
all of the women that
All
she had
of the
encountered,
women.
their experiences,
And who
their
went ahead
journey,
of her.
and she brought that to the room.
That's
so
what
she
you
was
do.
a voice,
That's right.
although they weren't in the room.
That's right. And that's what I take, is that you might come as one, but truly you deserve to be here because you represent that strength of all the women that came before you.
I also think you succeed more when you're confident. People trust you because you trust yourself. And if you don't do your homework, if you're not prepared, you've heard people talk today about education and the importance of it. You ignore the barriers and you focus on the things that you know you can make happen because you're using the resources that are available to you. You're not going to take over a room just by sheer tenacity, but you certainly can take over a room when you've earned that because you've done all the right things. And so I think if everyone works really hard to be their own personal best, not somebody else's, but their own, there's a great book, Emotional Intelligence. And it talks about being self-aware, which is an important characteristic. When you know that about yourself and you bring that confidence to the table, and that in itself is difficult, right? Because we say we have heard studies show that women lack that confidence factor, but you have to get past that for yourself. You have to know that you're good, and when you know that you're good, you project that image, and when you've deserved it, you're going to overcome all those obstacles because you should.
Do we need to wrap it up? Okay. I'm sorry, we need to wrap it up. I apologize. But we're going to have a short intermission so you can ask people directly, right? I did want to close with a few things. When it comes to what someone had just asked, I think a really important thing for everyone to remember is the worst thing that can happen when you ask someone for something is they can say no. Ask. If you don't ask, you can't hear yes. And I think it's something that a lot of women are scared. They're scared of hearing no, so they don't always ask, but just ask. Put yourself out there, and you are worth it, so do ask. And with that, Angela, do you want to come up and she'll lead us into the intermission?
Thank you. Thank you for all these wonderful, I would say, if I have 3 words for this panel, I would say amazing, inspiring, and empowering. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to take a 10-minute break. If our panelists, please stay here. We want to take a picture. Mary, please come up here. Michelle, we would just like to take a quick picture. And then if you're available to answer any additional questions. Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, absolutely. Joanna Gagas is in the house, everybody, instructing us all. She wants all the panelists together, and she's right. We did that last year. We'll do it again. Come on.
Up here or down there?
You want us to stay here? Stay here.
I guess. Which? New Jersey Women Lawyers Association, by any chance?
No, I haven't been.
I think you would love it. Not an attorney, but I have a lot of friends.
Zuleika, can you
Come on, Linus.
I'm going to go in the middle because I'm short, but I'm always in the back.
That's okay.
She's definitely in the back. She's the nice guy.
Tall ladies.
Yes.
I can send it to you.
We'll share the pictures with whoever wants them.
Well, but I already
Okay.
First, let's look at our Mick, our official photographer.
Right next to Mick, you'll be perfect.
I think Mick wants more pictures, so we'll do one more. Look at Eileen. Okay, everybody. Eileen.
We're all gonna look cockeyed in these pictures.
These are people who are passionate.
Are we done? Sorry, I don't want to move. One more.
We have one more. We'll break for 10 minutes. Marvelous. Thank you. We'll break for 10 minutes while we get our next panel rolling. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Joanna Gagis is a tremendous supporter of this event. This is her third year either moderating or being a panelist. And Joanna, I want to thank you for that and for your commitment to women, for your commitment to Berkeley College, to telling our students stories, for your passion, and for helping empower us here at Berkeley College. Thank you. You're a good friend, and that's the one thing I want to share with you. We're friends in this room. And I'm very proud to call Joanna a friend, and so many of the women here in this room are our panelists' friends. And we're widening our circle of friends, and we're going to keep building on that momentum. Joanna Gagis is a correspondent and producer for NJTV News. She is a veteran of television reporting and public television. Prior to joining NJTV, Joanna developed a show called Life and Living with Joanna Gagis, which really showcased the talent of New Jersey, the lifestyles, and what makes New Jersey special. And she really is, you really capture the essence of New Jersey in Life and Living. And now at NJTV, I hope you know how lucky you are to have Joanna Gagis on your team. At this time, you can read Joanna's bio and all of the bios of our panelists and our moderators online. You know where to find them. I really don't want to take up much more time because we've gone long into the program. So Joanna, come on up here. Thank you for doing this and for bringing your voice for empowering women.
Thank you so much for those kind words, Angela. We wouldn't have this event if it weren't for Angela. I wouldn't be invited back here if it weren't for her. And that is part of that relationship building that we heard so much about in the last panel. It is finding those key voices, those key women, those key leaders around the state who are making a difference, connecting with them, and then staying connected. And I hope that we can draw on some of that in our next discussion. But without further ado, I'd love to welcome the talented group of ladies to my left. I'm going to let each of you just take a quick minute and tell us, give us your name and tell us a little bit about your professional life today and what you're involved in today. I'm going to start right here on my left.
Oh, great. Good evening, or good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah,
I think
it's
it's
afternoon now, I
right?
know.
Yeah. My name is Jessica Ballou. I am the Chief Empowerment Officer of my nonprofit organization called Jessica Cares. But if you were to go on my website, the Jessica in my name is actually in acronyms. And so when most people say that, it's a great, conversation starter. So they're like, what does Jessica stand for? And it stands for everything that my nonprofit embodies, which is journey to becoming an extraordinarily strong, successful individual with courageous aspirations. And my organization works to empower young girls and women. So we take a holistic approach in empowerment. A lot of people just think it's about, just step out and do this. But a lot of times it takes that self-work that is really difficult. Like Iyanla Vanzant says, you got to do your work. So our programs, we do weekly programs with our girls to help them to stand on their own and own their identity, whatever that is. A lot of people look at me and they think, oh, she's Muslim. She only works with Muslim women or young girls. And that could not be further from the truth. I work with all girls because no matter what religion or culture you come from, we find that we are more alike than we are different. So what we're doing with our organization is helping to bridge the gap between mothers and daughters and to help them be empowered with each other and outside in the world, and it starts with them. So that's the work that I'm doing right now.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Elisa.
My name is Elisa Charters, and I'm the president of Latina Surge. Latina Surge is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we advocate for the diversity and inclusion of women and women of color. We focus primarily on self-empowerment. Our hashtag is #InPower because we believe that the power is within us. And that we don't have to look up to someone above us to empower us. A lot of times we think about, who can help us, who can help us? We can help ourselves. And we can help ourselves a lot more if we act collectively together as women helping women, and really getting educated on how we can surge to reward companies that walk the talk with diversity and inclusion. So are these companies including us holistically? Are they just marketing to us? I always think about Jennifer Lopez with, the Venus razors, and she's shaving her legs on the commercial, and it's like, if you're a Latina out there, or you're a woman out there, you should be using Venus razors. But what is that company doing for women? What is that company actually doing for women of color? Is there representation at the C-suite? Is there representation in executive management, middle management? How much of the foundation monies for those companies are going towards women's causes? Is there supplier diversity? Are they making sure that their supplies are coming from women-owned businesses, minority women-owned businesses? So that's the gist of what Latina Surge is we want women to know that you are each empowered to make the difference yourself. And collectively, the sky's the limit.
We are going to come back to that representation issue because it's a really important issue. But go ahead, we're going to keep moving along our introductions.
My name is Wilda Diaz. I'm the mayor of the city of Perth Amboy. I've been now mayor for 10 years. This is my third term. I am the chief executive of the operations of the city of Perth Amboy. I am vested in the city, born and raised in the community. I've had the opportunity to be involved in the redevelopment of our city, business development. Also at the same time, there's a workforce of 500 employees in the city of Perth Amboy. So, I oversee many of the areas of operations, but most importantly, I am the advocate for our community, for our men and women and children that live in our city. And I've had the opportunity to create many new programs for the betterment of the residents of our city. So I've had a chance to build up the city, with a great group of co-workers. We've been able to really make an impact for our residents. I do want to say something. Being the only woman of Latina descent in the state of New Jersey, my goal has always been to encourage other women to also seek office, because I believe that women, we should be at the table making decisions for our family and for our communities. And I have been on a mission in the last 10 years, speaking up on many issues that affect all our communities, especially people of brown color, and I wanted to have an opportunity to meet these amazing women too, and have a chance to, have this interaction and learn from each other. But I do want to say that as a woman, and especially in government, I have a lot to say, and I know it's a very short period of time, but boy, I'll tell you that I am, one day I'm going to write a book, but it's going to be a comedy in government. So thank you for having me here.
Some people might say New Jersey politics would be a drama. Others would say a horror show, but we'll go with the comedy. Councilwoman.
Yes, hi. Good afternoon. I'm Patricia Perkins Auguste. I'm a councilwoman in the city of Elizabeth for the last 26 years, and currently the only female sitting on the council for the last 12 years. I'm saying that is to say that political power is key. Political power is key, women, in terms of running everything. For those of you who did not realize that, maybe about a week or two ago, about a month ago, about 8 months ago, but you can see it now, who currently sits in the White House, how important it is for, on the local level, county, state, national level, for women to run for office. And, you know, you can, don't be like men. Be like who we are, the nurturers, the one who cares, the one who understands what it really means to feed a child, to send a child to school, to make sure that that child is working. All of those steps that you have that is internal, we need that in politics today. We are losing on a ground that is unremarkable. Yes, there's a lot of women running for politics today because they understand that to save this nation and to really to save the global economy, integrity, all of those things that make us human, women have to get involved. So I've been there for 26 years. I'm holding, you know, holding my own and doing what I need to do as an advocator for families first. Business is key. I used to work for First Fidelity Bank as an investment officer, so I know the concept of money. So when I walk into a room and there's all men investors, I said, I know money. I let them, I said, I was an investment officer. I said, so back up. I know your real-time money. I know what that means. So don't think just a little pretty face, somebody running in here who ran for office and got in. No, I understand your dollars. So first of all, you got to let people know that you respect them where they are. You got to respect people however they come to you, whether it's the multi-billionaire who's trying to build Jersey Gardens Mall, who I was sat and I made sure. I mean, who goes to Jersey Garden Mall? Who know where that at? All right, so you know what I'm talking about. That was not there. That was not there 22 years ago. Okay, so that mall is coming on this 20th anniversary because I know because I had my son the same time. I have a 20-year-old. So I was literally pregnant, you know, having children. So you can do all of those things. You know, it doesn't have to be one or another. Politics is merely about serving to me. I hated politics 27 years ago, 28 years ago. I was like, oh no, I can't stand politics. I graduated from Rutgers University. I call myself a recovering flunking student because I went to Boston University on a full scholarship academic. I didn't flunk out, but I came below the grade point average in terms of keeping the academic scholarship money. So my mom was like, okay, you got to come back home. I said, okay, fine. I finished up at Rutgers. I finished up at Rutgers University, and then I went on to Kean University just to take a couple of courses, trying to find myself in terms of what I really wanted to be. I went to school to be an accountant. You know why? Because numbers, they don't talk back to you. They don't lie. Numbers are cool. I love numbers. You know, I was like, oh, these numbers are great. They don't fight. They don't argue. You know, I don't have to understand. It's just numbers. So I wanted to be an accountant when I was 17, 18 years old. I said, I want to be an accountant. I'm going to Boston University. I'm going to be an accountant, come back and do my numbers. Before I went off to college, I went to Union County College for an enrichment program for overachievers. So I went there and it was like, so they took an assessment test. The guy was like, you're not going to do no numbers. You're going to be a sociologist. You're going to be something. You love people. You have compassion. I said, that paper is wrong. I'm like, I said, no, I'm going to be an accountant. My dad wanted me to be a lawyer. Because he said, you know, I want you to be a lawyer. I want you to go to NYU, become a lawyer. I didn't want to do that. But now I find myself advocating for everybody.
Were you surprised to see that you had those people skills that you actually didn't think you did early on in life?
No, I didn't because I felt I was more introverted. I wanted to do numbers. I didn't want to be really engaged with people to that level. Lo and behold, you know, God has another plan for your life. People can see the leadership in you. You can look at people and say, I know she's going to be a leader. I know she's going to be a leader. And then you help usher that along. But at a young age, sometimes we don't listen to our parents. We don't listen to our advisors. We want to do what we want to do.
And we're going to get to that point where we talk about listening to those and opening ourselves up to those opportunities and those times in life where you may be asked to step outside of your comfort zone. But so we're going to draw on some of that from you. But Linda, if I could ask you to just give us a minute about what you're doing right now, your organization.
Hi, my name is Linda Welbrock, and I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Leading Women Entrepreneurs. And our mission is to raise the visibility platform for women leaders, first in New Jersey and then around the globe. And we're doing that by positioning the women in our community as authorities, and regardless of whatever industry they are. So we work with a lot of different media outlets, as we feel that positioning, the best way to reach the masses is to, of course, get some publicity with women like Joanna, and we work with New Jersey Monthly. We also work with ROI-NJ and NJ Biz, pretty much all the media in the state of New Jersey. So there is a media component. We also have events on a regular basis. We just had our top 25 leading women intrapreneur event in Jersey City, where we honor the top 25 women in corporate America. Our entrepreneur event is coming up as well. So we use the media. We have these Emmy-like award events where we position women as authorities. We have a membership. We do global retreats. And we have now an online community, which I'm really excited to talk to everybody about here later on, because it's all about mentorship. So that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you. Just to set the stage, I'm sure I don't need to do this. If you turn on your TV, you see what's happening in the last year, the last few years, in terms of a real surge and a real awakening in this country around women, women's issues, women's voices, and women leadership. And so I am thrilled to have this panel because, in particular, we have women who are touching other women on every level. An important note, there are 431 women running for office today. That nearly doubles the number that we had 2 years ago for congressional seats alone. We've got women running for governor in states where there has never been a female governor. So we're feeling this surge. And I want to draw on that. I don't want to diverge into the politics of why it's happening. Last year we talked a lot about the Me Too movement, and I think that was a real key point for women. But let's move that conversation forward. And how do we talk about inspiring women's voices, representation at the highest level? How do we actually make change in our communities to address these concerns that we're seeing? So with that, Mayor, I want to ask you, you're the first Latina, you're the first woman, you are right now the only female Latina woman in the position of mayor. When it comes to sitting down at the table, having representation, and working with men, what do you think are some of the greatest lessons you've learned, some of the greatest lessons you'd pass on?
Well, first of all, I would say you have to have thick skin to be sitting down with our male counterparts, right? When they're the mayors. And I'm going to say, I've always been, I'm true to myself. I believe that you have to be true to yourself before you go. You need to know exactly before you go into those meetings what's going to be discussed. So I'm prepared before I sit down with the male mayors, especially throughout the state. You know, when I walk into a room, I'm the only Latina mayor. Can you imagine? Everywhere, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 10 years.
Has that ever made you question yourself?
No, actually, it makes me want to work harder. It wants me to work harder, that I can prove that I can do the job. I have worked on many difficult projects, particularly in the city of Perth Amboy, and I've always wanted to show that yes, I can, and that I go the extra mile, because I want to be informed. I wanted to, when I make a decision, I want to know, I want to get as much as information before I make that final call on some of the projects that I've worked on. But also, you know, it wasn't only in Perth Amboy. Throughout the state of New Jersey, I was the first Latina mayor, too, for the New Jersey Urban Mayors Association, where my counterparts, many men, actually elected me to be the president of that organization. I presided over that organization for four years. And it gave me an opportunity to work with mayors from throughout the state, especially in the urban communities. And it gives you, it gave me an insight on why we need more women mayors.
How do you think your role as the president of pretty much an all-male organization impacted their perspective of women?
You know, I had a great working relationship with many of the mayors. You know, it was wonderful to work with Mayor Bolish from Elizabeth, and I would work with Jersey City, you know, Patterson, Trenton, Newark. And we had an opportunity to work on some great projects that were impactful for our city. And I had an opportunity to also save money for our city, for our community, by replicating some of the things that were happening in some of the projects that they were doing. They would share information with me. They were forthcoming. And I think that during my 4 years as the urban president, we did a lot of great work together as an organization. And not once during that time did they treat me any differently. And we went back and I mean, we went toe to toe sometimes on some of the issues. But we had respect for each other. But I see such a lack where I think women, we bring so much to the table. You know, we really do think differently. You know, I heard earlier that you have to be that lioness and be strategic, and you have to be strategic when you're in this field.
Thank you.
But I am just going to say, I would tell every woman, you know, we have it in us to lead. And we just got to be that risk taker. And
Yeah.
I've always been a big risk taker.
Thank you. Elisa, you right now are an advocate for really getting women into the C-suite. Not everyone knows what the C-suite is, right? C-suites, boards, they're the decision makers. They're the executive level positions of a company, of an organization. They are making the decisions that impact the workforce, that impact sometimes people beyond that company. Talk about why diversity and inclusion is so important for women, for people of color at those highest levels.
Well, it's basically because all the decision making happens from the top down. And in most cases, practically speaking, we're trying to address inclusion from the bottom up. Most Latinos, people of color, women are typically in the middle management to lower management levels. You can see all of the statistics that are out there. I think it's like something like 0.3% of CEOs are Latinas across Fortune 500 companies. It's pretty devastating to learn. And I think we should take it even one step further, because a lot of times, you know, a CEO will run the company, or the C-suite runs a company and makes policy decisions throughout the company, or a direction or a culture to be inclusive. And so it's really they're in the driver's seat to make those decisions happen. But we are in the driver's seat because we're the consumers, we're the customers. The customer's always right? That's the saying, right? And so if we demand certain things from the companies that we purchase from, they need to listen, because their shareholder value depends on it. So like I said earlier, when we come together collectively and think about how we can surge and reward companies that are authentically supporting us, they're going to do better. It's their competitive advantage, actually. We just need to realize that and come together and figure out how to get that done. And I'll give you one quick example. There was a company, Jet.com. I don't know if any of you heard of it. It's still functioning, but it was purchased by Walmart about a year or so ago. Jet.com was a startup to compete with Amazon. Jet.com, now Amazon is pretty much effectively a startup as well. It's just been around longer. Obviously, it's at $1 trillion in revenues, so it's extremely successful, probably one of the most successful companies in the history of our country. And basically, Jet.com came along to challenge Amazon, because there really wasn't any other company similar to it that was out there doing that. And guess what? Jet.com showed up and said, we are going to start off with equal pay right off the bat. They had 13 tiers of pay. So it didn't matter who you were, what color you were, what gender you were. If you could fulfill a position within those 13 levels, you got paid the same that everyone else did at that level. And I think more companies really have to think that way. You know, it might be a little bit different with bonuses here and there, but with, you know, base pay, that's something that that companies really should be thinking about. And we should be knowledgeable. It's incumbent upon us to be educated about these issues, start looking up the stats. Latina Surge is a member of the Lean In organization that's run by Sheryl Sandberg. And there's tons of information out there that you can learn. Be knowledgeable and learn how to negotiate for yourselves as well.
Sheryl Sandberg, I think, is the CFO of Facebook.
She's the COO of
COO of Facebook. Jessica, you had something to add. Go ahead.
You know, you asked a great question about why is inclusion, so important. And I think, as you mentioned, that it comes from, decisions are making from the top down. And if you're not representing the diversity of the consumers that you are trying to attract, if you're not aware of the culture, if you're not aware of, this may mean something to you in this realm, but it means something completely different to someone else. So when you bring inclusion, especially the women, or just, the diversity that is in your organization, you can tap into how best to be able to communicate and connect with the communities that you are trying to connect with. So it's really important to have those different voices, have the diversity in the room to be able to hear. When we're trying to tap into the Latin community, what's the best way to be able to do that? The best person to find that out is a Latina. Or Latino, a Latin man. If you're trying to get into the African American community, the best person to represent and be an ambassador for that community is an African American person because they understand the culture. So it's really important for managers, executive people to understand that they have those people in their organizations and they can expand the company by having them included. And the employees then stay with the company because they feel they are part of the decision-making and the growth of the company. So when you feel you're a part of something, you'll support it much more.
That's right. And I'm just going to add to your point. I'm supposed to be asking the questions, but I have thoughts too. It's not always an intentional oversight, right? When you have a board of all white men, they might not be thinking of how they're not representing all of the diversity that's within their own organization. So this might not even be an intentional slight. And that, again, is the reason why you need that diversity at the top to represent those within the company. I'm going to throw this question down to both of you, Linda and Councilwoman. When it comes to really enacting change, how do we work together? Someone said this recently, and I can't remember who it was to give them the quote, but they said that the best partner for a woman actually is a man. That's not in any kind of marital setting, believe me. But what that means is that women need the support of men in order to advance. We need those men who are going to understand how important it is to bring women along or to help women rise up. So this question is to both of you, because you'll work in very different capacities. Councilwoman, I'll start with you. How do you work with your male counterparts to advance women and the underserved in your community?
Well, basically, like the other two speakers, panelists stated, that sometimes they don't even realize that there is a difference until you bring it to their attention. So by me being the only person sitting at the table who can represent all of those, diversities, whether it's a woman, whether it's a mother, whether we're talking about local issues, sometimes they just don't know. So our approach should not be one of an aggressor, but more of an advocator. So that's why I say I advocate for so many people to let them realize, hey, this is going to affect XYZ community, if this is going to affect this segment of our population. Let's see how we can rework the policy so that everyone benefits. So I always try to balance. You have to balance. You have to be that scale in that room if you're the only female. Sometimes you have to be the balancing act all by yourself. But you got to speak up. You got to advocate. You're not there just to be, an ornament. You're there to be an advocate. So I always, try to let them see what there's another side. I let them talk. There's 8 of them, so I let them all talk. So when they
That's
finish,
the lioness in you,
yeah,
right?
the lioness, and I let them get all their thoughts out, and so when they finish, and I say, "Can I speak?" And sometimes I got to say, "Can I speak?" Or it's my turn to speak. And then once I get the floor or get the mic or get the opportunity to speak, I say, "Well, let's look at it this way." And then a lot of times you can see them. They yeah, well, that makes sense. Or some of them may not say anything, but you have to let them get everything what they want out first. I mean, that's the strategy. Let them speak. And then you just say, well, let's look at this a different way. Let's look at this another way. But please never leave the room without voicing your opinion, your thoughts, your intelligence, your advocacy. Because once you leave the room, that's it. The decisions are going to be made. You know, every now and then I say, I don't have time. I don't go into the little boys' room. So let's try to make the decisions right here at the table. You know, you have to understand, you know, you cannot just sit there, women in leadership and authority and power, and just allow, you know, just sit there and take notes, because that's not your job. You know, your job is to advocate wherever sphere you find yourself in leadership. If you know, by yourself, you're not by yourself. If you want to sit in there, and I think about that. I think about the Fannie Lou Hamers and all the women who went before me, and women who I don't even know, and women who, you know, clean floors and wash other people's babies. I think about all of that sometimes when I'm sitting there, and I said, if I don't speak, something's going to knock me out of the seat.
So do you feel that you're sitting there representing these people? You're thinking of them. You're visualizing.
I'm
who
visualizing
you're
all these other
representing.
women, you know, these, you know, Latino women, you know, the Irish women, you know, the Polish women, the African. I'm thinking about all these women because we're one. And sometimes, and it gives me inner strength. So you need to tap into your own inner strength, whatever that gives you that inner strength to open up your mouth. Because remember, I wanted to deal with numbers. I didn't want to deal with all this stuff. So something from within has to tell me, open your mouth and say it. You know, so I say it and do what is necessary so that all of our voices and all of our interests are, you know, are being taken, you know, in consideration or before decision and policies are made.
Thank you. Linda, I'm going to ask you that same question. But in a business setting, it's different. You're not necessarily making policy decisions that are going to impact an entire community, but nonetheless decisions and working together. So how do you work with men? How do you encourage other women to work with men?
I still, a lot of people say, can men come to my events, and are they allowed in? And I said, men are allowed in. I do like men. I'm married to one. I have a dad I love very much. I have a son. This is not against men, right?
This is not the the Men Haters Club,
it's
right?
not the Men Haters Club, not at all. So just for the record, that's all straightened out. But I do think that men, and I have a term that I've used and embraced, is that we all have to find men change agents. And change agents are men in any setting, in the political world or in the corporate world or even in the academic setting. And those men are going to help sponsor you to get where your next level impact is supposed to be, right? They're about creating equality for everyone. And I think that, you know, those men are coming forward, and you just need to keep your eyes open for them, because they are out there and they should be partnering with you on that. I have a great story. I don't know if anybody saw in the news the story about the president of Salesforce. His name is escaping me right now. But about pay equality. So he is a really this is the way, this is our culture, this is our, you know, and he didn't even know that he had a huge pay gap right underneath his nose. So I think sometimes it happens, and it's not necessarily from a bad intention, but it's a lesson that I think makes us all just, you need to be aware, right? And I'll give one other example of being aware, because I see this beautiful young pregnant lady here in the front row. So I think it was Sandra, who are the COO of Facebook? God. What am I
Cheryl
saying?
Sandberg.
Cheryl Sandberg. I got to be able to get her name right? I have 3 little kids too, by the way. So sometimes I get stumped. But when she wrote her book, Lean In, one of the chapters talked about how when she was pregnant, it was the first time that she basically noticed that the parking spots for pregnant ladies were like all the way on the other. There was no safe parking spaces. And she's like, it took me until I was in this position, and how many pregnant women have come through this company who have been in the heat, just walking from the other side of the parking lot. So from that moment, from her experience, and I mean, that's, that's for better or for worse as a leader. Sometimes you don't know what needs to be done until you walk in that path. But it's then your responsibility as a leader to make that change and to come forward and say, I didn't even know it myself, and I've been working here forever, right?
Absolutely. There's never a wrong time to notice something that needs to change and speak up for something that needs to change, right?
Absolutely.
Mayor, I'm going to ask this question to you. How much of you can't achieve what you can't see, right? How much of leadership is vision?
It's all vision. You have to have vision to be able to lead, and then have those that surround you buy into your vision so that you can carry out what you would like to see, the task. I have to say that throughout my 10 years as mayor, it wasn't easy. There was a lot of resistance being the first female mayor of that community and being a Latina. And I have to say, when I came in, I said, I'm going to make a difference that's going to affect 50,000 plus of our residents. Your life upbringing has a lot to do on how you're going to run how you're going to operate. I grew up in public housing for the most part, and I saw how hard it was for many families. And I made it a point that when I became mayor, I was going to do everything possible to help many of the families, especially the children that were living in that environment. So how your past experience is how you're going to move your community forward. I've had an opportunity to participate in many rallies, fighting on so many issues that affect each and every one of us each and every day. And the $15 minimum wage, I've been fighting for that. I have been out there also about equal pay. I've been out there fighting for our community, a large immigrant population. I've been out there being that voice, that advocate, but I've always been a voice for women. I have made sure that in my capacity, I'm the mayor. So I have an opportunity also to put in place that the hiring practice for our community, that they were going to reflect the people that lived in our community. So I was that element of change.
Grassroots.
And grassroots, and
From
I had
the bottom up.
and I had an opportunity also to hire women, and many women, they have the credentials, they have the experience, and I made sure that within the administration, they also had opportunities for advancement. Yeah. We hire a lot of women for police officers. We didn't have them in the past. We encourage many of our young women also to be able to go ahead and apply. When those tests come out, apply. When promotion time came up, hey, you guys have been police officers. This is an opportunity for advancement. And a lot of them, women that look like us, have an opportunity to have a better job, better pay, and then at the same time be able to interact with our community. And residents in our community need to know that within in government that they can go and they will feel a comfort level, and that the employees that are going to be working for our city also are vested because they live and work within our community. That there's opportunities for everyone.
Thank you. Jessica, really spinning off of that, you try to inspire young girls every day. You deal with girls who are challenged by low self-esteem, images that they see put out in the media of women as over-sexualized, women as meant to be pretty, not really substantive. How do you inspire women to have a vision when they may not have a role model in their family? They may not have ever had someone to set that higher example. Many of them are firsts, I imagine.
That's one of the reasons, that's a great question. That's one of the reasons why we, as of last year, we now enhanced our program or took it to another level of including the women, which were the mothers of these girls. And a lot of the issues that we see with our young girls, as you mentioned, is because they don't have the role model. But it's not necessarily because the mothers are not good mothers. It's because they weren't taught. And so you have to be that way shower and open up the opportunity to change what was once a generational curse to now a generational blessing. So the same tools that you are giving to the young girls to tap into this. You know, it's not about what's on the outside, it's about what's on the inside and what you have to offer. And you may not know what your gifts are yet. You may not know where your destiny is going to be yet. But just trust the process that if you just hone in on what's most important to you, your values, your morals, that moral compass, that it will come. And teaching the mothers that are of these women to change the narrative in their own minds of themselves, so that way now they can teach it to the next mothers in their families.
Give
And
me
if
an
they
example
don't-
of that. What is a narrative that you've seen in a mother who wasn't able to break through her own perceptions of herself?
A lot of times a woman's low self-esteem becomes her daughter's story. And what I mean by that is, even unbeknownst to the mother, she doesn't realize the message that she is sending to her daughter is the same negative thoughts that she has about herself. So she will say things to her daughter like, well, this is what is given to us, or this is the best you can do, or you won't be able to do that because of, and that's really her story. And she's sharing that and passing that on to her daughter. And so now her daughter now adapts a story that initially wasn't hers, but now it has become her story. And she will most likely do the same thing with her daughter.
How do you break through that?
How we break through that is being able to, let's not focus on the negative. You know, let's focus on what is it that you actually like about yourself, even if you've never said it to another person. What do you actually like? Being authentic. Let's just take everyone out the room, and it's just you looking at yourself. What do you love about yourself? What do you like about yourself? And then we start, and you know, when they start saying, okay, someone actually wants to hear what I like about me, it's giving them that opportunity and that environment to be supported and saying, yes, you are a good mother, or yes, you are a good student, or you know, whatever it is that they're feeling negative about, and changing that. And then actually, once they embrace it, then say, what can we do right now to support how you actually feel about yourself, what you actually see authentically in you? How do you do that at school? How do you do that at home? So giving them not, well, I can show that later. No, how can you show that right now, even in a small space? How can you show that empowerment of self in the classroom with your family, your siblings, as a child? Whatever that role is, and bring that to the surface right now. And when they do that through community initiatives, getting good grades and being rewarded for it, that's what starts to empower them and change the trajectory of how they see themselves.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you. In the city of Elizabeth, during the month of March, I would historically run a women's empowerment series for a week long. And that would be for mothers who or in transition in terms of maybe living in homeless shelters, living at Y's, women who were unemployed, women who were underemployed. So a week long, I would bring professionals in because, you know, you have to build up the mother at home. It's okay, because I used to do the same thing, work with the children and work with girls, but something was so missing because you would be with these girls and you would mentor them, but then they would go back into an environment that they didn't feel that same nourishing spirit. It wasn't there. So I just decided, let me work with the mothers. Let me work with the women. So I think hundreds of women would come through this women empowerment series it would be week long, and you know, I would have first getting to know yourself, because you can't help no one unless you know who you are. So getting to know yourself, self-esteem building. So I would have women come on, professionals to come in to speak to them, and then at the end of the week, I would have someone come in to give them a day of beauty. So I would work on their internal first, and then on the outside, the last day, they would go get their hair done, and I would have that be sponsored. Makeup artists, give them new clothes, for dress for success. And to this day, I would see women that I forgot that went through that program and say, thank you so much. I now own my business. Now I went back to school. I have my own home. My children are doing well. You don't know how much impact you have when you encourage another woman. You don't realize what you do for their self-esteem, for their entire family. So it works. It truly works when you go after the mothers or the parent or the aunties, even the grandmothers. Women have started their own nonprofits, and they were like, thank you. That empowerment series, what you did was so great. It helped me get my own business. All these things happen when you empower another woman. So women empowerment programs like this and others that you have in the community, they're priceless. I mean, the value to a family when you talk about their spirituality, their health issues, everything.
It's a ripple effect.
It's a ripple
essentially.
effect.
Go ahead,
yeah.
Jessica.
Yeah.
Like what she was saying. Some of the women and some of the girls, you have youth entrepreneurs now, but they don't have the how-tos or the support. So like what Jessica Cares does, we have an entrepreneurial program where it's not just the daughter in the room, but it's the mother and daughter. And so they're actually doing this together, and it's bridging the gaps, the generational gap between mother and daughter, and they're doing something positive together. So that is a way of changing the trajectory. When I come to events like this, I'm always looking for women who are just like, I'm all for the woman. I'm all, that's what I'm looking for, because those are the resources that I'm like, you know what? We're having the Shark Tank, for the entrepreneurial mothers and daughters. I would love for you to come and give your expertise, and that now you've just expanded their resources. So now they're not the recipients anymore. Now they're the networkers in the room, and that's so empowering for both of them to see that, and like you said, dress for success and getting other resources and exposing them to something that they've never seen before. That's where the empowerment comes in, and that they belong and deserve the good that's coming to them.
Elisa, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd also like to add that, cultural intelligence and emotional intelligence is critical
What do
for
you mean by
any young professional. Like, knowing what your personal background is, whether it's culturally or emotionally, and what are your triggers, like what motivates you, what makes you like step away from something. You are all going to be working in global teams. Whatever company, agency, organization you work with, whether you own your own business, eventually there will be a global component. You will have to work with different people from different places. And the more you know about yourself is going to help you learn about how you're going to work with others. Also, having exposure to working with other people from different cultures and different backgrounds will really help you forge a much better relationship, a much better team, and it's really going to be necessary to have that competitive advantage. So it's important to know, like, culturally for me, growing up, I was Latina, even though my mother was, I would say, more independent than most of my other female family members. I always was still kind of taught, like, don't talk until you're asked to be spoken to. Like if you're asked for your opinion, then you give it, but you don't just insert yourself and say, well, wait a minute, this is what I think,
Did you have to learn that?
You have to learn these skills, and it's really important to, first of all, recognize that if you don't have them, and if you have other skills that are great skills, use those as assets, but really, find the time to read some books about emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence, and, how you can be your best self working with other people.
Right. I have
Go ahead.
something I can add to this too. And I wish somebody told me this when I was young.
Right?
So younger, 20-something, I take this advice along, I would have taken it a long way. So I think as women, and especially as women entrepreneurs, we tend to focus on the 2% of things that are going wrong, and not the 98% of things that are going right. And it's really easy to, you know, I've had successes, you know, like, oh, that was great. And the next day I'm like, I got to do this, and not take the time to even recognize that we're doing so much good in the world. And so I've developed some strategies for trying to flip that around. And you can all do this by getting a simple journal. And I do it quarterly with my team, and I spend 30 minutes with them. We have a monthly lunch, and I say to them, okay, I want you to tell me in the last 30 days everything that you feel that you've accomplished. And the first 2 minutes are like, what kind of a trick is this? You know, they don't want to do it. They have no interest in it. And I'm like, I'm setting a timer here. We're going to do this until I get a list. And then little by little, they're like, oh, I developed a whole new CRM system for you. You know, like, they're doing incredible things, right? So it's just an exercise in kind of looking back and seeing what you accomplished. And that's good, but the next step to that is saying, what do I want to accomplish in the next 30 days? So that this journal, when you get to the end of the year, and you're feeling really sad in December and cold and it's gloomy and you're like, oh, what am I going to do with my life? You can flip back and say, oh my God, I can't believe all of these amazing things that I accomplished. And I think that it's that vibrational positivity and energy that when you embrace and accomplish those things, you draw to you the people who are going to help lift you up to get to your next level.
Yep.
So I think that that's just some advice that I wish I had a long time ago, and it works.
Linda, how would you have used that in your personal life, let's say as a student or as someone starting out in their career?
So I would have said, you know, if I was a student and I had this trick of mine back then, I would have said, oh my gosh, I accomplished a degree, right? I signed up for a new course that I was really nervous about starting or kind of discovering, and I got through it. So those would have been some of my accomplishments, and I would have said, you know, where are my goals, right? What do I want to do within the next 30 days? I want to graduate. I want to explore these industries, right? I was a journalism major, so I wanted to work in television. Can I get this interview? Can I meet these people in the industry? And then if I met them, it was like, oh, wow, that worked. But it's something that's measurable and quantifiable. And when you match that with your desires, all of a sudden it's a beautiful action plan for life, right?
Mayor, did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, yes. On government side, on the government side, we call that the state of the city. You know, and we actually gather our best practices and we take a look at what has transpired in all our departments.
Right.
You know, and then I have an opportunity to share that information with all our business community along with the residents. But it's so true. You know, in government, you actually track.
Right.
You know, where you're at on basically on a daily basis and on a monthly basis, because we have all these reports. But you can always go back and then say, hey, we need to pay attention more in this area. And maybe you have to reshift, you know, your priorities and take a look at what's working, what's not working. But yeah, I think tracking and just celebrating your accomplishments is so important.
Jessica,
you know,
go ahead. You had something you wanted to add to.
Everybody here read knows of Jack Canfield, right? Yeah. So he had, you know, I took this 10-week program that he had, and it was just about what we're talking about. He was saying, you know, a lot of times when we look into our future or we look into what it is that we want to do, we think of everything why we can't do it, why all the obstacles, everything that will make this impossible. And what he did was so I want everybody to practice this when they go home today, is take your age and divide it by 3. And then with each stage of your life, think of what was going on in your life and all of the accomplishments in spite of what you accomplished. Because what you've accomplished in the past is indicative of what you are capable of and what you can do in spite of what's happening in your life. So I think it was just a really great exercise to celebrate your past and all of the accomplishments, because that is what's going to get you going to the next and meeting and attracting that law of attraction or, you know, karma, whatever you call it, attracting you to the same people that are looking for the same thing. We're not all in this room by accident. These are like-minded people in the room looking for the same thing, and this is how you collaborate and you can help each other get to the next level.
So this is why I love collaborative discussions like this, because my wheels start turning. And so I have 2 points. I actually had a question that was going to kind of turn on its head what Linda just said, but I want to touch on something Jessica just said. There's a very fundamental difference in the way a man walks into a room and the way a woman walks into a room. And give you a good example. A boss has an opening for a job, and he goes to a man and he says, I've got this job that's going to be a promotion for you. I want you to start tomorrow. And the man goes, okay, I don't know how to do that job, but I'm going to learn. A man goes to a woman and says the exact same thing. I have a job opening and I want you to take it. Oh, I don't know how to do that. I can't do it. So there's a very fundamental difference in how a man says, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. And women need to tap into that. I might not be there, but I've got the qualifications. I know I can, and I will. So just keep that in your mind.
Story on that one.
Go ahead. Say that into the mic for us.
Those are examples of intelligence, like knowing how you should handle yourself in certain situations, and just don't go by your gut necessarily and just blurt out what you think, you know, the right answer is. Like, actually do some research as to, like, if I get asked these 5 questions in an interview, how should I answer them?
So preparedness.
And you said this whole theme is leadership. Part of being a great leader is saying, I may not have the skills, but I know someone who does. And so we have so many people that we collaborate with, and we don't tap into their strengths, and they make you look good.
Right.
You know, they make you look good in your position, but then you bring them to the next level and empower that next woman.
That's right. So, Linda, you said we should. Yeah, go ahead.
I have to tell.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm meant to tell you ladies a
Please
story.
do.
Okay, so I got to say it
We're
while I have
getting
the
an energy
chance.
up here. Go ahead.
But it was to your point about how men and women act differently in different environments. And last year we had Kathy Engelbert. She's the CEO of Deloitte and Touche, and she was our keynote speaker at our event one of our events last year. And not only was she a phenomenal speaker, but she said she had a job that came up, and the day that she announced that the job was open, which was a high-powered job, 9 men knocked on her door and came into her office and told her why he should be hired for that job. And not one single woman knocked on her door. And she knew of at least 5 that were qualified and would have gotten the job. So she doesn't understand it. I don't understand it. All I know is that it's there, and you need to get up and knock on the door when an opportunity is announced to you, right? That's going to get you to your next level impact.
Or how about even when an opportunity is not presented, but you know either you could do something or there could be an opportunity here if you create it for yourself.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
And I think, just to add
Go
to
ahead,
that,
Councilwoman.
I think what women feel like, they say, okay, they see my work, they know I'm qualified. They want people to acknowledge them. And then that's another thing I think women tend to look towards, like in the workplace. They want people to acknowledge their good work. I hear women all the time say, well, you know, Councilwoman, I was the most qualified. Why didn't they ask me? I said, well, why didn't you tell them you were the most qualified? You know, well, they see I'm doing all the work, yes, but they don't see you acting like you want leadership. You know, that you're going to be responsible for doing all the work. You're doing it because that's who we are. But are you asking for the leadership? You know, are you saying, hey, I can do that? So that's another thing I think we have that it's natural in most of us. And women need to break out of that and say, you need to demand the fact that you are ready for leadership. You can do the job. You've been doing the job. And then you come in and train someone else, whether it's another female or a male counterpart or someone else, because you are afraid to say, I can do it, I've been doing it. So that's something else that I see that all the time. I'm in business, I get phone calls about that all the time. Oh, they discriminate. No, maybe they didn't discriminate. Maybe you didn't, you know, maybe they don't know that you want to have the leadership position.
Go ahead, Elisa.
So that's something we need to really, you know, encourage one another to go for leadership. The worst thing they can do is say no.
That's right.
So I had a wonderful opportunity to meet Anna Maria Chavez, and she was the CEO of the Girl Scouts for 8 years, and she traveled across the country meeting with all troops, over that 8-year period, and she came back and said, I can't believe it. Like, I heard the same thing over and over and over again from all these young girls. I don't see it. I don't see people doing what I want to do. I don't see other women or other women my color doing what I want to do when I grow up. So she said, if I can see it, I can be it. And kudos to you, Mayor Diaz. Like, if people can see it, if other women can see it, they will go for it. And you've had the courage to lead the path, and many women today have. And I think that's why we're seeing, back to your original question, why so many women are now putting themselves out there to run for office or start their own businesses or, follow the dream that they have always been thinking about. It's possible. You just have to believe in yourself.
Jessica, go ahead. It's just like even when I grew up, and I'm sure many of you can attest, when they have the son, you're going to be that doctor, and for the girl, you're going to be the nurse, and it's that she accepts that narrative after a while. Like, I'm the secondary. And I think what we need to do as mothers, as fathers, as sister friends, is to support one another and share what we actually see beautiful about our sister friend, our daughters, and let them know that they do have it in them, even at a very young age. So if there's, isn't there a student board at your school? What you would really be good at? My father and my mom used to tell me, you love to talk. You'd be a great attorney. Those are the things that I think children need to hear, is what they, you'd probably be good at this. Have you thought about this? And actually give them something to think about that they can aspire to, because they know that they have it within them. And that's the changing the narrative that I was speaking about earlier, is doing that with each other. And then, as she said, being that way shower. So if they're hearing it, seeing it, then the next generation will then do the same.
That's right. My mother said the same thing to me, but it was because I like to argue.
Right, debate, yeah.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Well, I have to say something. I was surrounded by very strong, loud Puerto Rican women. My mother, my aunts, there was like nothing stopping us, And I remember them. My father was like, no, you're going to be whatever you want to be. You are going to, and he would say that to all 6. I come from a very large family, 6 girls. My father, 1 bathroom, poor guy. Oh. But my father would be one of them that he would be like, no. He would tell my sisters the same thing. You are going to be someone. You're going to, and don't forget the way, how we lived. And even when I became mayor, my father always tell me, don't you ever forget that we walk on the same street. Don't you ever forget how hard it was for us. So now you have an opportunity to be that element of change and make things better for many other families. Nice. And I carry that. I live it each and every day.
And I think there's something to the fact that came from your father.
Yes.
And that's where we need men to be those change makers. We need the male voices to support women just as much as the female voices do. Unless anyone had anything else to add, I want to lob another question out there. We're talking about a lot of successes, but I don't think that any person who's ever been in a position of leadership has gotten there without some major stumbles along the way. So I'm going to lob this up, and whoever's brave enough to go first, tell us about a failure you've had that really, we've got a volunteer already. Tell us about a failure you had that really brought you to a place of maybe humility and really learning something important about yourself that allowed you to change.
So before starting Latina Surge, I had started a company importing children's wear from South America with 2 partners. And so we were importing children's wear from Peru, Argentina, and Brazil. And you can imagine, it was a startup, how many hours we had to put into this business. And I had 2 little kids at the time. I think my kids were maybe like 4 and 5 years old, maybe 6, 7, somewhere around there. So, I was taking time away from them. Really, curating this new baby, if you will, of a business, and spent 5 years doing it. It was growing. We were putting our heart and soul into it, and it was doing very well. But then, just like that, the economy, boom, just ended, right? the world like kind of came to the end at in 2009, 2010, hitting Main Street, and mothers were no longer buying children's wear for their kids. They, like, if they had any disposable income, they were going to spend it on themselves or other, you know, necessary goods in the household. So it was like all of this investment, all of this time, like it was a really, really tough pill to swallow to say, okay, do we continue on or not? And I actually wanted to continue going on. I just felt like, let's just, you know, this is our first major obstacle. Let's not just quit because this is a problem. But my business partners both had reasons why they didn't want to proceed. So, and I knew at that point I couldn't do it on my own. You know, everything's timing. Someone else said that before in the earlier panel. And the timing wasn't the right timing for me to continue on with this business on my own, even though it had momentum. So to me, it was like kind of like a big failure that I spent, you know, all this time, energy, and effort into something, and we had to close it down. And it was, you know, at that point in time, it felt like such a failure. But now, you know, it's like almost a decade later, I look back and I'm like, wow, I'm still so happy that I had that experience because it led to so many other, not necessarily opportunities, but with new opportunities, I have that experience to fall back on now. And I won't make those mistakes, or maybe I'll do it differently now. Now there's technology that I can apply to that idea, you know, or, a figment of that idea. So, you know, everything I crack up now, I don't say that was a bad experience. Now I say that was an experience, and I'm going to make sure that that experience and education that I learned through that experience is going to be applied towards good. So.
Who's our next brave Edmund? Go ahead, Jess.
I've been doing Jessica Cares now for 8 years, and for 4 years of that, I was like totally stagnant. And I remember I was like, okay, this is, you know, I want to do this. This is my passion, but it's not really going in the direction that I want it to go. And I solicited a business coach, which I totally recommend everybody to have if you're in business.
Yes.
And my business coach was that voice that I knew inside but didn't want to say out loud. And it was because I felt that nonprofit meant no profit. And so I wasn't asking for anything and was wondering why my business wasn't growing, why my nonprofit wasn't expanding. And she was like, why don't you ask? And I was like, well, you know, I don't think people, I mean, we're a nonprofit. And she kept digging and digging and digging until eventually she got for me to actually be honest. And she said, what eventually it came out was I was afraid of rejection. And it had a lot to do with my past. Because I was the different child, because I was the one that, you know, didn't quote unquote fit in with my siblings, I was afraid of those negative comments that I thought would come because I asked for what my organization deserved. And when I had that aha moment, that epiphany, it was like, you have something to offer. You have something to offer the community. These are girls that don't have a voice and they need somebody to advocate for them. You have mothers that don't have a voice. And it was, if you don't speak up and if you're afraid of rejection, that's exactly the position they're in. And so that was that learning moment for me, that failure, that for 4 years my business didn't grow because I was so afraid of, you know, someone not seeing my vision. And basically the learning lesson was, you know, there's a corporation or there's a corporate sponsor, there's a funder out there, an investor, that probably have had some type of experience that they're like, yeah, I'll rally behind that cause. And if I don't speak it, if I don't put it out there, then no one's going to hear where they can actually support. So that was my learning lesson and my mistake.
You had that aha moment. Do those feelings sometimes come up? How do you deal with them if they do?
Yeah, sometimes they come up, especially when you do ask for your worth, you know, what your organization is worth, when you ask for that grant. And they're like, well, why should we give your organization that versus this organization? And it's because, you know, it's because we deserve it.
So
and
you
so
go
yes,
back to that.
Oh, yeah.
You go back to that confidence of I might feel uncomfortable, but I know this is what I'm worth. I know this is what we're doing.
And you have to actually reject. You have to shut that voice off, and you have to say no. This is what the mistake was before. I have to ask for it anyway, because if I don't ask, it's not about me. It's about the girls and the women that are not going to be able to benefit from the program, which is my whole mission. So it's remembering what's most important.
Any other takers? Go ahead,
Sure.
Linda.
I could talk about this all day, but I'm going to boil it down to 2. I got more than one I'm going to share. I think the first one, it's really important if anybody goes out there and starts a business with a partner. I had originally started my first business with a friend, and we were all passionate and we were going to do this, and we were so excited that we didn't go through the necessary legal steps and the necessary conversation that needed to happen, right? What happens if one of us, like you were saying, if one of us doesn't want to do this anymore? I mean, that's okay, right? But if that happens, am I going to buy you out? Are you going to buy me out? Are we going to dissolve the company? And by having that plan and that conversation up front, which can be uncomfortable, you're actually protecting the friendship and the business. So if you ever go into a business with someone, my advice is that you just do your homework up front, because you're going to have a huge headache. Believe me, businesses are a whole nother thing. It's a marriage, and you really have to get everything in a row before you marry somebody, basically. Because you are marrying them.
Do that with marriage also.
Yeah, do that with marriage also. Exactly, point 2. The other piece of advice I'd like to give all of you, if you're starting, it doesn't even matter if you're starting a business or if you have a corporate career and you decide to have children. I was kind of a hybrid version of that because I was starting a business and I had twins. Now I have another baby too, but they're getting a little old. I have 11-year-old twins now and a 7-year-old, but my business is started with the twins. And I remember always feeling so guilty, just like going and these events. And my mother-in-law was staying with me at one point, and I don't know why. I think I was saying, I don't know, should I go to this? Like there was a social thing and she was babysitting. I was like, I don't know. I had to work and I shouldn't go to the party. I had, whatever. She's like, go to the party. That's why I'm here. And I'm like, oh, whatever. I just feel so guilty. And she said to me, she's like, guilt is a useless emotion.
Yes.
Right?
Wow.
And right? You gotta love her. You gotta love her. I was like, okay, bye. I'm going to the party now. I don't feel so bad anymore now. But it is, and I think that women tend to feel guilty no matter what choice they make when it comes to their kids. If there's as many stay-at-home moms I know who are just as guilty, feeling guilty because they don't have a career. And if they have the career, they feel guilty because they're not with their kids. So you really have to have that conversation with yourself and come to terms with it. I don't think that there's really a general right answer. It's a case-by-case thing, but it's something that you're going to have to address within yourself. And remember, guilt is a useless emotion. It's not serving you, and it's not serving them. Just do what you got to do and do it confidently.
I'm going to make that my mantra.
Yes, right? We all need to hear that.
Yes, it's very true. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I can speak to the childbearing years. I was in a meeting one time, and a director said, don't you need to be home with your child? Ooh. Yeah, ooh.
What year was this?
My son, he's 20, so he's 20. So he was about 2 years old, so about 18 years ago.
We're going to hope that man evolved between then and now.
Yeah, he did evolve.
And why aren't you
but,
home with your children?
Right, and why aren't you home with your children? But it is a lot of guilt when you have children, but don't feel guilty. I mean, I have an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old, and I've been in the council, like I said, for 26 years, and they have a full, whole life. They well-grounded. One is, off the Rutgers. The other one, he's on the autism spectrum, but he's still in school. So meaning that you can continue, don't feel guilty about exploring what you want to do, what you were put here to do, in addition to being the mom, a wife, and child, all those things. There are other things that you've been put here to do. You have so much value, not only to your family, but to the community and to what you aspire to be. So, no, I'm I can testify, I can be a witness to all of that. And when my sons go out, they were like, "Oh, your kids are well behaved." I'm like, "Huh? How do you expect them to behave?" But they can see that you can raise your children, you can give them focus, you can give them direction, and still do the things to advocate for other women and for your community.
And just to bring that thought full circle, one of the questions we asked early on in the panel was, how do you inspire vision for women who don't have an example, right? And then all of these women who are setting an example, myself included, struggle with the guilt that we should be home with our kids, but always remember, our kids have that example. Jessica, go ahead, and then I think we need to wrap it up.
We have that guilt as mothers, but just the other day, my daughter said, I was kind of like in a slump. I was like, I need ticket sales and it's not happening. And she was like, Mom, she was like, you're doing a good job. She's like, you've always done a good job. She was like, everything's going to work out. So while you think that, oh, I don't have enough time with my children, or I'm not putting into my children as much as I'm putting into someone else's children or community or family, your children are watching everything that you're doing. So while you're thinking you're not doing enough, they think you are a superwoman. So, keep that in mind, that as long as you're setting the best example that you can for that younger sister, your children, or whoever, they're going to see it. Keep your intentions pure, keep your intentions what they need to be, and everything will fall into place.
Right.
Thank you. Let's give a round to these ladies. Thank you so much. Angela, do we have time for a few questions from the audience, or do we have to wrap?
We're a little late. So do you have time for?
Yeah, I have time, then I gotta run after that.
And we also have to do interviews after
Okay.
the video. So
Okay, all right, so maybe one question.
one question.
Okay.
Get all together, make it the best one.
Or maybe there's none.
Strategize and
Well, I don't have a question, but I have a comment. So I know, this is about.
We're going to give you the microphone. It's for the people who are watching online.
Oh, okay. So I know this is about women leadership and empowerment of women, et cetera, which is great, and I always support that. But the one thing that I use as my mantra, as we said before, that we need the men. And what I do is that I look at some of the things that they do very well, and I don't believe in reinventing the wheels.
Yeah.
So I will migrate some of their strategies into my own strategy and then make it even better. So I just wanted to put that comment out there.
For sure.
I just want to say, it's not a man's strategy, it's what's the best strategy.
Right.
Yeah, so
But it
if
was
they use the best strategy, why not we?
Right.
And we probably gonna enhance it anyway, but but it's just
All the
good
men in the
business
room are like,
strategies,
But the
yeah.
main point is
You
that
gotta
I just basically look at what's good happening over on the other side of the aisle, and then I just like, let me just take it over and then make it mine, so make it unique.
So Councilwoman saying men invented the wheel, we put the rubber on the wheel.
That's it.
All right.
Okay, we have one question in the back, and then we might have to, we've got two. All right, we'll make them quick.
Women are really good at math, by the way. One,
Yes.
one, one.
Go ahead.
Hi, I know that this is time conscious, so I'm just going to be really quick. This question is for Jessica, Miss Jessica. So what's the best piece of advice that you could give someone that would instill them to be more courageous and to being their own leader?
I love that question. Love that question. Especially for a young one like yourself, is listen to your own voice. Listen to your own voice. There's so many voices, from radio to media to TV. There's so many voices that may not serve you well. We are born with an intuition, a inner voice that I personally feel is God, but anybody can take it how, what that inner voice means, but all of us have that intuition of what's right for you. So if you want to be courageous and you want to step out and do something, don't let anyone tell you that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not old enough, you're not, whatever they tell you is the obstacle. You listen to your own voice, and if you feel that you are capable, just go out and step out. And even if you don't get it, even if you don't accomplish it right then, it's a learning tool. And then sit back and reflect. Again, your own voice. What did I learn from that? What could I do better next time? And go after it again. Don't let anything stop you. Be courageous no matter what anyone thinks, and you will be the way shower and give permission for other people to do the same.
We had one more question in the back. Sorry, I didn't mean to stop the applause.
Good afternoon. My name is Morgan Wilson.
We heard about you, Marcus.
Councilwoman, you said previously on the panel that we should tap into our strengths in order to become successful. So I'd be delighted to know what are some of the strengths that you tapped into in order to become successful.
Okay. No wonder everyone likes you.
Well, first of all, I'm an independent thinker and I'm a fast starter, and I'm very focused, and I know who I am. I know my center. I know my core. I have a real strong spiritual upbringing, so I didn't really need acceptance from other people, so I can't be bullied. So, and I'm not easily intimidated. So those things help me to just keep my focus, and I'm here for the people. I'm here to serve people. I believe in serving people. So I didn't get really caught up in like the real politics of politics and the real, the nitty-gritty stuff. I kept myself above that to make sure I'm really providing services for the community, making sure the business community is well, grounded, making sure there's people who needed to be empowered, making sure that was available, that there was avenues across the board of equality in terms of job creation, making sure people are empowered, making sure the disenfranchised, had a seat at the table. So just all of those things. I come from a real service background. Ever since I was like 8 years old, 9 years old, 10, I've always been involved and engaged and always believed in participation. So I hope that helps you.
I have one
Need
thing
to
I
wrap?
just want to
Go
add
ahead.
to the prior question. And I first of all, I love this panel. It's such a great group of ladies.
Great panel.
We could stay here all day, but I know we have appointments. And I think to your point, Jessica, that whole finding your voice, to find some strategies on how to hear that voice. I think it's really one of the ways that I was able to center myself enough to be able to just know who I was and hear this literally a voice. I found yoga, and that worked for me, right? But yoga's not going to work for everyone. There might be people, you have to find something in your life that you love so much that you feel like you're on a different plane, and you can't cut that out of your life. In fact, it's your responsibility to try and build that into your life as much as you can. And again, now that we know guilt is a useless emotion, so when you're out there doing yoga or cross-country skiing or whatever it is for you, because it's different for everyone, those moments are so important because there's too much noise, and somehow you got to quiet it down in order to find your voice.
Yeah.
I'd also like to just
In one word,
Oh, sorry.
journaling,
Okay.
writing writing is key. You take a moment, and when I don't do it, because I'm so busy, I can feel myself like I gotta write, I gotta
Bubbling
I
over.
gotta do something. Journaling, your plans, your thoughts, your actions, your weaknesses, your strengths. Just write it. Just take a piece of pad, right? Just
Also,
start
if
there.
you're also exploring something new where you don't have the experience and you feel like the newbie, and you feel a little bit like an imposter in a space that you're not familiar with, be the best imposter you can be, because ultimately you will become the expert.
Well said. Fake it till you make it, right? Fake it till you make it.
That's the truth.
All right. Thank you all so much. Let's give a round to our panelists. Thank you for the wisdom and advice that you gave today, sharing your personal experiences. Thank you again to Berkeley College for having this important discussion today. And thanks to all of you. And we'll see you next year. Thank you to all of you for coming today and spending the time. Thank you.